AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007, and since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions.
And welcome everybody to our Saturday show where we get together and answer gun questions. We may even answer some gun questions today, but we were off last week, so we'll probably take a minute to catch up here, answer questions to people who join us tonight or this afternoon, I guess. And I want to thank everybody's listening to us as a podcast. That's always fun to have people join us after the fact. If you're listening to us live, be part of the show. And if you're listening to us as a podcast, feel free to give us some feedback, some thumbs up and whatnot whenever you're checking out your podcast apps. Tony's joining us from New Jersey, and there's big news in New Jersey. Plus, what you were at like the Cigar Comic Con last week, you said, or something. So hear about that. And then, well, I'm sure you got a diversity shoot coming up here. I'm not sure when the next one is, but let's start off with how's it going? What's happening in your world, and then we'll chat about. We were just about to start talking about the New Jersey decision, but let's know what's happening with you first.
All right, what's happening with me is we had last weekend we had the New Jersey Cigar Festival, which was awesome. I got to go. A friend of mine picked up some tickets, and they have drawings and everything. It's the New Jersey Cigar Festival, so you have manufacturers down at Barrister Cigar in Union, New Jersey. And he had manufacturers out there, and we had prizes and raffles. And I think I did $20, and I won some stuff that I'm actually going to give away at the next diversity shoot as raffle prizes themselves, and that's pretty cool. So it's like ashtrays, cigar holders, a travel case, swag, that kind of thing, cigar cutters. So that was pretty cool for me. And of course, the week before that, that week, I also had a diversity shoot at Union Hill Gun Club, which is also where I have one this week. They were back to back because they actually wanted to do 6 of them. Yeah, they wanted to do 6 of them at their location this year. So I had to figure out a way to break 6 events up over a 12-month period. And that's just how it worked out for this one. So I look forward to it. We actually sold out again.
I was going to ask, when you do them that way, do people come right back and just do it 2 weeks in a row, or does it turn out to be like different group of people?
This is the first time we've actually done it back to back at the exact same place. So right now, half of the tickets are already gone, which is cool. I'm going to post up tonight because I'm going to talk about the New Jersey case also, which is cool. So I'm going to be talking about the New Jersey case on a live. I think I'll advertise for it also and put it out there. I'll probably do it like 7 o'clock tonight or something. What else? Oh, yes. And we did have the Cheeseman case, Mark Cheeseman, who is a friend of mine. I actually know him. He, along with CNJFO, the Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners, and the FPC, Firearms Policy Coalition, sued the state of New Jersey over the 15-round magazine capacity and over the Colt AR-15 being banned by name in the state. So the judge who retired immediately afterwards, so we can't appeal, it got to start all over again. But Colt AR-15s are now legal to buy in New Jersey. That means the Colt brand AR-15 is legal to buy in Jersey now. And but we lost the 15-round thing, which goes against Bruin. I don't know how he used Bruin to say the Colt AR-15 was okay, but then he looked at the 15-round magazine capacity and said that could stand. That's the most ridiculous crap ever. So we're going to appeal. We're going to win that one eventually because we can't not win that one. And if you go back, a friend of mine who's also in on a lawsuit, J Factor, pulled up right from what was it, tradition and standing, or however they're supposed to judge right now.
Right.
Militias had to stand up with 27 rounds of ammunition ready. Not loose. It had to be tied up in a little, almost like a cigarette, like a roll your own cigarette. The cartridges had to be ready to go, 27. So they had higher capacity magazine because it had to be kept in a cartridge box, which a magazine is a box that holds cartridges. Ta-da, same, but different. Um, so they're going to take an L on that. It's actually written as members of the militia actually had to have 27 rounds on them ready to go. So they're just priming up for that. And the next move in New Jersey is also going to go after the one handgun a month law that they have in effect. They say that goes against Bruin also. So we're looking for some wins because if it gets to the Supreme Court, they're going to take an L on it. And maybe even if it gets to other higher courts after precedents have been set in places like Illinois, uh, where Connecticut, uh, California, all these wins set precedents for us. That's why one of the things we say is, you don't move out of the state, you don't run away from the problems, you fight them where they are, and you set precedent. So that's what's happening here. The state attorney general and even this corny ass female helicopter pilot who is a legislator in District 11. Her name looks like Mickey, Miike, and Shelly or something like that. I don't know. I posted it up on X and I can't get to it because I'm using my phone to talk to you guys. But she posted, as a mother of four and a military veteran and qualified as an expert, I know AR-15s don't need to be on our streets, and the ruling Friday made us all in danger. And I'm like, hey, you twit. Your entire life, AR-15s have been in Jersey. Only the Colt branded AR-15 has it. So I went and dug up. Somebody had made a list of all the manufacturers of AR-15s, which we can have in New Jersey. There's over 250 of them. And I just did a screen recording, just scrolling up the list in alphabetical order from 2A armament all the way to Z. I'm like, all of these AR-15s have been allowed in New Jersey during this woman's lifetime. I'm like, it's politics. They're hoping you're too stupid to know. And then, of course, I also pretty much made a commercial for the diversity shoot, and I posted that up. I'm like, yeah, come shoot AR-15s in New Jersey at the diversity shoot next week. We have Palmetto State Armories, we have Andersons, we have Arrow, Arrow Precision, Modern Material, and more. And I just kept showing different ARs with like women shooting them at our events. Oh, minority women shooting them at our events. And then I posted it to her page and said that she's proof that all veterans don't know everything about firearms. So I tried to make it attack proof. So people have shared it a few times and a lot of people have liked it, but anti-gun people have ignored it because, well, it's a landmine. I did it on purpose. That's why I like the diversity shoot. I have people from all backgrounds.
I was in the military, so I know about aircraft carriers, or like I was in the military, so I know about airplanes. It's a little bit exaggerated, but it's essentially the same because, depending on what branch you're in, you don't even see an M16 after the first 3 months of your training. Maybe you see it once a year, but I'll bet you.
Yeah.
I guess it depends, but I guess in our era, they were really taking a lot of jobs and removing them from the military and making them civilian jobs. And obviously those people, I'm sure, never saw an M16 at all because they didn't even work for the government. Well, they'd worked, through a company that worked for the government, making milkshakes or something. But, delivering tires to some base, they didn't need an M16 for that kind of stuff. But, back in the day, like supply clerks and all the people you see on MASH who, weren't fighters that were still in the military, they all had to learn an M16 at one point. But then maybe once a year, they make you go requalify, in which case you just pick one up off a shelf or whatever, a rack, you shoot it, you make sure it's clean, you put it back, and that, you don't see one again. So to suggest that somebody's been in the military and they know about rifles is, like you said, they're playing on people's unawareness or inexperience with this stuff. Because, I know people, I was in a long time ago, but I know people that never driven in a Jeep, like never driven in a Humvee, never done a lot of things you'd think. There's probably, now that you think about it, there's people that probably don't even wear uniforms that often, or at least, they live in their one uniform, either the what do you call it, the work clothes or the dress uniform?
Utility uniform,
But
Or
there's probably people that do like accounting and shit, and they've never even put on their BDUs except for PT once in a while. And they do PT the same way that other people touch guns. Like they only got to do PT once every 6 months to make sure that they, I don't know. I don't even know why they make them do it. They probably don't when they're just doing.
It's called an appeal to false authority.
Yeah.
I actually looked it up because I knew there was a term for it. It's appeal to false authority. I was in the military. And I'm like, Heifer, you were a helicopter pilot in the Navy. One, you've never shot an AR-15, or at least not attached to your service record. And two, there were there were dozens of manufacturers of AR-15s available. Only the Colt by name was not available. Nobody in New Jersey is in any more danger this week than they were last week of AR-15s. It's just stupid, and they know it.
Well, let me clarify on that then, because that's what I was looking. I just didn't even bother trying to figure it out because one, I didn't see any video that just clearly put it out there. There was a bunch of maybe 3 of the lawyers were like, the assault weapons ban is canceled or whatever. And then the other lawyer was saying, the assault weapons ban hasn't changed. Like, everybody's got it wrong. And I was like, okay, there's controversy, so I'll just wait till I talk to Tony. So you mentioned it already, but so those of us over here not dealing with it, we see the other states that are dealing with it, the 9 or so states dealing with it, the same way that everyone would pay attention to states that had like, who's got the 75-mile-an-hour speed limit? Like, who cares? Some of the states back east or back west have, or out west, I guess, have 75-mile-an-hour speed limits. But unless you actually are driving down the highway, who cares, right? So it's one of those things where I know that you got some bad gun laws, but to keep track of all of them, I just don't have the brain capacity. So I knew that you had a ban on some things, but I knew that yours is different than like Massachusetts, for example. So are you saying, if I understand it right, then the AR wasn't necessarily penalized? It's just that somehow they came up with the Colt AR-15 and said you can't have that one. Okay, so you've been able to have different types of ARs in different stages all this time, and that's where essentially you've just been saying, oh, you're just repeating yourself. I'm repeating what you said now. But so that's why it's a false to say the assault weapons ban been killed, because there really wasn't an assault weapons ban. There was just a specific ban on that Colt for some reason.
So it's stupid. Yes, the Colt was named by name as the only AR that can't be sold here. Every other manufacturer of AR-15s, from 2A Armament to Arrow Precision to Wilson Combat, can all be sold here in Jersey, and every name in between. The only thing that they have as our assault weapons ban is features, evil features. So the bayonet lug has to be sawn off. I have an M16A4 clone. You know how pissed I was that it's a perfect clone because it was a Marine Corps issue AR M16A4. I was able to purchase it because the company went out of business. They cut up the lower receiver. So it wasn't a clone, it was an actual thing. All I had to do was buy a civilian lower that was marked M16A4 from Arrow. Well, guess what? I could put the whole thing together, but before I connected it, I had to take it to gunfire range. They cut off my bayonet lug, and then I had to provide a BCM A2 comp that cost me $90 effing dollars, and they took off the $5 flash hider and put on a $90 comp, and then pinned and welded it in place because muzzle comps have to be muzzle devices. Excuse me, that's the term we have to use here. We can't have a flash hider, but we can have a muzzle device that's not a flash hider, because flash hiders hide the flash and the police won't be able to see where the shots are coming from. I have just quoted the superintendent of the state police during his testimony in 1991. That's why he said we can't have flash hiders. So I had to pay to have that pinned in place, welded and pinned in place on a 20-inch barrel. I had to pay somebody to cut my bayonet lug off. And since it had a fixed stock, it was good to go. But if I had an adjustable stock, it would have had to been pinned in place, and the only way to remove it would be to destroy the stock. And that is because, again, quoting the superintendent of state police in New Jersey, a collapsible stock allows the AR-15 to be stuck under a coat and no one can tell that you have one. So we need fixed stocks here.
And now, according to the ETF or FBI guy, you could also carry it around in a field and up on a roof.
Yeah.
And ridiculous.
Yeah. So this is the ridiculous thing the government officials say to
So,
cover
well,
their
the
own
assault
butt.
weapons ban is really what do they call that? Like a scary features
Features.
ban.
Yep.
Did that
Mhm.
get affected? Is that still in place?
Nope.
Okay.
Yep. Nothing changed. So when people were talking about it, I don't know
So
what
it's kind of like
lawyer.
a clarification more than a change, really.
I mean, really, look, Mark and Mark Cheeseman, that's who presented the case and ran the case up. Mark Cheeseman and J Factor are going about destroying all of these anti-gun laws. I mean, they taking it on as a personal mission. So if you guys can please support CNJFO, or when they come up with their next case, I'll be posting it up where you can donate so they can keep this fight up. Because these are the guys that are leading the charge here. Just regular dudes, got regular jobs, but decided to take it on as their mission to fight the state of New Jersey tooth and nail. They're young enough to handle it. Their families are behind them, and they just know there's a target on their back all the time. But they decided that's going to be their mission. So as 2A4E, I'm going to support them. I'll talk about them wherever I go, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to talk to you guys about what's actually going on and the people that are fighting a good fight here behind enemy lines.
So it got a lot of news, but then, well, I appreciate that. I'm glad we can help out. Did it change anything? Like, the conversation at the diversity shoot or anything? Like, is it a note? Is it a win for New Jersey, or is it just like, oh yeah, thanks?
It's just beating down the laws one at a time. That's all it is. And now when we can talk about it, when a person like me points out how stupid it is, it's like no one here has a Colt AR-15. And they're like, what? Yeah. So the AR-15s you see because it's Thursday. So we're at Union Hill Gun Club. Union Hill Gun Club has a gun shop in it. So I'm going to actually have everybody stand up and look into the gun shop because it should be open when we start. I'm like, you see that entire wall? Most of the wall is AR-15s. Not one of them are Colt AR-15. Those have been here the entire time. All right, come everybody, sit down. Let me explain how stupid this is. And that to me is a talking point to show how ridiculous it is. I'm going to quote the attorney general. I'm going to quote this lady, whatever her name is. I'll learn it by then, or I might just mispronounce it just to be a bitch. And I'm just going to put it out there. These are the things they're trying to protect you from. They're not protecting you. They're using it to take your rights away, and they're tricking you into believing that they're helping. And for me, it's a talking point. The next with the 15-round magazine capacity, the 10-round magazine capacity limitation. I don't know why I said 15. The 10-round magazine capacity limitation is one I want it and the one everybody wanted. The other one is even asking permission for a pistol purchase permit. They're trying to get rid of that too because it's ridiculous. I mean, it saved me a bunch of money over the years by not allowing me to quickly buy what I want. But outside of that, it has done nothing to keep anyone safe. So we're knocking these down one at a time. A lot of people on the outside wondering what's taking so long. Well, let's just assume it takes about $1 million a case. That's what takes so long. Then the state has to prepare. They have to delay. They have to do all their crap. We have to have our arguments laid out. It's a process. It's much better if we could just vote politicians in that won't violate our rights. But most people don't vote. What is it? Over 10 million firearms owners across the country aren't even registered to vote. So that's some of the problems that we're facing here. People don't participate in the electoral process. And I'm not just talking about the presidential elections. Again, this is local representative, District 11 in New Jersey. Her ass needs to be replaced. But if you don't participate in the off-season elections, as they call them, you just won't know. And you'll never affect her because you won't go out and vote against her or people like her if you don't participate.
Yeah, and that's been something that we've contended with as a country for a long time. Whenever something isn't big news, then nobody knows about it. So therefore, all kinds of crazy stuff happens, or unfortunate, I guess, stuff happens in those elections because they're not going to say, hey, this is an important election, because they're trying to sneak in there and everybody else is too busy doing whatever. And yeah, so it's, I think,
And
a
then
bit
they'll
of
tell you,
everyone assumed for a long time that there was nobody working against us and that, the news was on our side, or at least, the awareness of what was going on was was
Mhm.
available. Like you may have to go look at one news source or another, but you're going to get both sides of everything. And I think that's adjusting, right? It's not like there's only 3 networks and you can just watch 3 channels and get the full coverage of what's going on, or choose 2 and get a pretty good idea. You really got to probably watch like maybe something like a Twitter or some kind of thing where you get a feed insight from a whole bunch of sources, and then you still have to do some determination of what's hype and what's real. So it's just a lot
It's
of
going to
effort.
be too much. Yeah, exactly. It's going to require too much effort for the regular person who's used to. And I'm not attacking anybody because I
No,
was
it's
that
just
dude. I
unfortunate.
mean, I'm just put. Yeah, thank you. All right, cool. At least you understand, because
Yeah.
some people want to take things personal because they hear it. No one's going to put that much effort to find out the truth on the local news story or even national news story, because you have to, in my opinion, look at the left and the right, and then you got to pull a foreign source,
Yeah.
and then you have to pull a foreign source that you don't agree with. So it's like Al Jazeera, BBC, and then MSNBC or CNN and Fox, and
Like
try to
almost
figure it out
partial because
between.
they hate us or they're skeptical of us, or something, they don't trust us.
Yeah,
And then you get at least some actual insight from because you get 2 people on the same side of or 2 people on opposite sides but in cahoots against us. Well, that's we want that third party to go, hey, look at how these 2 parties are messing with their own readers or whatever.
yep.
Like yeah.
And when you say it, and nobody wants to not look at their own guys. Everybody wants to look at their favorite talking head, whoever it is. And I mean, I'm not going to say one side's better than the other one, even though one side I don't politically agree with, but the other's not much better the other way. And I'm like, look, guys, see what the other side is saying about you so you can understand when someone calls you a MAGA cult member, or someone calls you a libtard. You can see the news that they're being lambasted with to make them think that you think that way.
Mm-hmm. I think some of the more valuable stuff is when you have relationships with people that are different politically than you, that you can ask questions. I don't know anybody that would do it live or anything, and I don't know if I'd even want to do it live, because it's like one of those things, like I don't know, like eating healthy or exercising or something. You're kind of supposed to do it, but I don't look forward to doing it, so I don't really like get up and go, man, I wish I could get a whole other project going where I talk to people who think the other way from me, and we could fight, or not fight, but have debates.
Well, most people can't debate. Most people can't debate. I know it's not my forte. And then sometimes people aren't at extremes. Like all of a sudden you're agreeing on like 90% of the things you're talking about. Well, who the hell wants that? You know what I mean? As entertainment. It's like, yeah, I agree with you. That is kind of nutty. That doesn't make any sense. What? Yeah, I agree. I'm not and no matter who you're talking about, they're not like a crazy person.
Do you know who Malcolm Gladwell is?
No, I don't.
I never heard of him either, but evidently he's somebody that people respect his opinion on stuff. He's like maybe a kind of like John Richardson. He looks like some kind of researcher, or maybe I think a researcher, and like what do they call that kind of journalist? Like a
investigative journalist.
Yeah. I think it's something like that, because I'm watching the first interview I've ever seen with the guy, and he had an interesting. He's talking about China and stuff, and one of the things he brought up was, man, how did he put it? Something to the effect of like, if you picked 12 different issues in society or something, people might agree on like 3 or 4 of them, and then I don't know if he was saying our tendency is to worry about the 3 that we don't agree on. But, we have a lot of common ground. We all like eating bread. We all like waking up in the morning and not dying. And we all like having family around. Like we all have things that we all like. And then, well, I don't like blue color houses. Or, so I don't like red. I don't like red color houses. I kind of do like blue color houses. But, somebody else might be the other way around. Blue's a stupid color for a house. Like, but is that really what we're going to then go, well, I've got 99% of things in common with this person, but that's where I draw the line. And, some of it is, but it's easy to blame society, but nobody is out there offering that perspective, at least in mass, right? It's not like, hey, why don't you leave people alone? Instead, it's hey, why don't you worry about the one thing that you don't agree on? You know, like, hey, you know what? You might be shopping at the same store at the same time of day for the same stuff, but why not hate the person next to you? You know, why not get mad at them for some reason? And I think we've got a little, you know, the freedom, whatever, is all nice and everything, but when we're not tyranny, or what would it be? I guess like a state, or else an individual, like so either fascism or communism or something. Something where the state is going to, you know, some committee is going to decide how we're all going to feel about stuff, or else some individual tells us how we're all going to feel. Then we have growing pains. We have things where we have to figure stuff out. And yeah, if we don't have people who are systematically, is that the right word? Systematically interested in keeping us all on the same track. Right now, we have a bunch of people who, because it's freedom, they can make money keeping everybody divided, and they fucking love it. And we haven't figured out as a consumer to all that, like, we don't have to consume that. We could find like I'm going to just say Twitter because they can handle it. Like, we could find a friendly Twitter. You know, like right now, Twitter is being open, and that's allowing people to be, I don't know, assholes to each other a lot. But it's discourse or whatever. Is that the right word? Like, it's back and forth. Like, it's not, it's unedited, it's unfiltered back and forth. So it's getting weird, but, I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing shit out there because I don't think there's a way to make a friendly. You'd have to have rules that say you can't be mean to each other, and that's not free anymore. So I'm not suggesting it's easy to do or anything. But
well,
it just seems like we don't have influence that's focus is getting the people together. Most of our input is trying to keep us all apart.
Well, it's the way we're built. Let's not act like there's a couple things. One, when they put advertising dollars on the news, so the news actually has to draw eyeballs, and they have to compete with each other for money. Well, nobody has news that shows puppies getting rescued out of trees, and which would be hilarious. But you know what I mean? No one shows good news only because no one would watch. We love controversy. People tune into it. That's why there's so many people being argumentative on pages on Twitter and social media, because you can get paid for engagement. So you will say the stupid, outlandish, dumbass thing, and people will chime right in. If not people, then bots. Now, I told you once, I think I told you, but I've been telling people, one of the things I got told when I was to learn how to grow your social media was to actually create multiple accounts and actually start fights on your own post. And then people will chime in
to kind of,
and I'm like,
to seed the bigger conversation or whatever. Yeah, it's not like putting a dollar in a tip jar. Yeah.
Yep. So that's my issue with it, is people are falling for that like they're real people, and I'm like, nah, that could be one person. That could be a bot from India and some bots from North Korea battling it out in your comment section. You don't even know it, and you think it's real. I'm like, stop. It's not how it works.
We got a real comment from Woods here that I'll hit in a second, but that makes me want to bring up a controversial topic. And it's tough for people to take this one, I think. But I'm going to say I have faith in the youth, right? That Gen Alpha that's out there that everybody can't handle how they say words or whatever. We got a lot of population that's young, and this new Gen Alpha is huge. And the young population was used to being the kids. And, if anybody's been around long enough to have young kids get younger brothers and sisters, they figure out that, there's like a maturing that happens when you figure out that you're not the little kid anymore, and there's other kids that are littler than you, and now you got to start being a bigger kid or whatever. I think we're going to see that happen with I don't know what they are, millennials, I guess, and the Gen Zs. I don't know how it all works out, but essentially we're in a tiny little generation here, so nobody ever pays attention to us. But that Gen Alpha, I got faith in them, because I can't imagine why they'd be any different than any other youth, that they're going to be skeptical, and they're not going to want to just take whatever is laying there. They're going to want to play with it, put their spin on it. And I had a lot of faith for us because our parents, the boomers, are the ones that actually created the internet and created electronics. Really, I mean, they literally created electronics. So they figured out the internet. They put all this thing together and they gave it to us. And it was like having those old cars, like the Model T cars. They gave them to us and said, "We don't know what to do with it, but you guys can figure it out." And then all these generations that I just mentioned, we all started driving these cars around. And we're familiar with them, and the new generations are even more so, like just totally like their whole lives are understanding technology and stuff. So I kind of figured we'd do a pretty good job because we were the first ones to get it, and we were cynical or whatever, like we're wise. The Gen X's and the millennials are fairly capable. So I kind of figured we would figure out harness like the growing pains or whatever it's called. Like what I'm thinking of is the ability to communicate. You know, we all had an ability to communicate one-to-one, and then we got telephones, and then we got radio, and then we got television, and we've been manipulated and dealing with the frustrations of, you know, communication with these new technologies. But everything kind of speeds up and everything gets going, and we got cell phones and we got the internet, and we all mastered all this stuff. So I kind of figured it would be us, but I'm seeing that that's not going to happen. We are definitely getting stuck. Our generations, I should say, are getting stuck in the bickering mode. Like we aren't getting past that. And I talk to too many old people that just are content to bicker, and that might be something with age or something. But these young kids with the skepticism and with the fluent understanding of it all. Now, I hope that they probably don't understand how it works, which is frustrating. But some of them will at least understand technically how it works. But I think that if there is going to be an opportunity, or when the opportunity comes along for someone to go, hey, here's a new, like, I'm trying to think of a comparable, but the same way that like Amazon changed stores, we don't have to absorb information from a couple of media sources. And as much as we were skeptical of them and we rebelled against them with our clothes and our attitudes and shit, like nowadays they can compete against them with their own blog posts and their own news sources. So I'm still, I still have hope, and I'm still optimistic that the new generation will cast this whole, like, we're going to disseminate information and you're going to bicker about it. They're just going to cast that aside and not stand for it. And I think there's plenty, I know that there's technically opportunity to do that. It's just a matter of if they get sick enough of it. And I think some of the words they use and all these, like, you know, people get mad at the way that they say stuff with Ohio and Riz and all that weird shit. That's an indicator that they're sick of this shit, that they don't even want to talk to us. They want to talk to their own shit. Now they are playing around, but that's how it always starts. It always starts with music and games and farting around, but then they become fluent in having their own conversations, and then they leave the old, you know, when's the last time anybody picked up a tabloid? Like, you know, the Inquirer isn't changing anybody's opinion anymore. But at one time, like when we were in high school, like that had a big impact on the world. So I think that we're going to potentially see new way, like maybe a family Twitter or something, you know, some place that people, maybe it'll start off with being a thing where they talk about their festivals and their raves or whatever they call them now. And it turns into, you know, the new Instagram where everybody kind of just talks without a filter and everybody figures out, oh, we're 99% all on the same track here. Let's stop spending all this money. Let's all shake hands with whoever illegals are in the country right now, see what's up with them. And then if they're here like as human traffic and they need to get rid of the burdens of that, then let's help them with that. And if they're here to make a better life, then fuck off. Everybody else's grandparents were here the same way. Everybody wants a better life. So move over and let them have a better life. And then, you know, incorporate the illegals instead of making them be a rift. I don't know. It's controversial too, I suppose. But
well, they try to make everything controversial. I think one of the problems when you listen to people talk about whatever the newest generation of kids are called, because really it's just another bullshit category they use to divide us. Coming up with some name like it makes an effing difference if you're born in 79 or 82. Somehow you have a totally different effing personality. Shut up.
Yeah.
Like you weren't raised by the same people. Anyway, what I'm seeing, because I don't have kids, so I'm not seeing these people as children. I'm seeing these people as just, I talk to kids like they're young adults, just youthful. I don't do baby talk. So when you say something, I listen to you. I'm seeing that they're more well-rounded. I'm seeing they think stuff out, and the stereotype that all these content creators are putting out about how a Gen X acts versus how a millennial acts versus how a Gen Z. Shut up. You're playing into it too. And some parts are entertainment, and I totally get that. But when you act as if somehow the joke you saw is actually how people think, it's not. I was blessed, and I'll go ahead and say it because I work for the state. And when we hired new guys, I was like, great, I'm going to get somebody who's in their mid 30s with the state worker attitude. You know what I mean? Because you never know who can transfer into a job when you work for the state. They could go from one department to the next department. Well, I ended up getting a 19-year-old. He just turned 19 or maybe even 18, fresh out of high school. So I got to deal with this young man as a young man. Bro, kid's from Jersey, born and raised, South Jersey. About as conservative as you can be with almost everything. You'd think he was a 40-year-old guy with his opinions. You know what I mean? So that whole, well, this is what 19-year-olds are about, not true at all with him. And I was like, all right, it might just be him because he's from South Jersey. If people are not don't know Jersey, South Jersey is kind of red part of the state. It doesn't have huge population centers for the most part. It's in the Pine Barrens. At least that's the part he was from. So it's more country, it's more Republican. All right, cool. Well, the next kid that starts 23. Same thing as he's from Central Jersey, which has cities, which is this, which is that. Both of these kids pretty much vote Republican, conservative. I asked them, they don't use pronouns. They think it's the dumbest crap, and so do their friends. So it's like, stop buying into the divisive bull crap that you're hearing from people that are feeding you bullshit. And if you're hearing it from your kids, that's one thing. But understand they're just repeating what they hear. But when they talk to other people outside of that, they're not talking to their parents. They're talking to other adults, and you'll find out a lot of that stuff is just what the press, the media, is trying to deem another divisive thing to make you worry that all hope is lost. Every generation, including cavemen, probably said, "Look at these people; they're soft. We couldn't start our own fires. We had to wait for lightning to strike. These suckers are rubbing sticks together and getting fire. Convenience." Every generation has said the same
Yeah,
damn thing.
seriously. There was somebody sitting around going, "We had to wait for lightning. We didn't just create fire whenever we felt like it." Like, damn kids.
Yeah.
And yeah.
What if you can't find two dry sticks? Now what, Ugh?
You know that happened. Oh, I don't like those kind of sticks for making fire. These sticks are way faster for making fire. These sticks are lighter for making fire.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, every generation thinks the generation after them are soft. Somebody, I love this because this is America. We're a young country. So we have writings from people from the Civil War era talking about how soft the kids today are. And they were talking about the generation that went to war in World War I, talking about how soft they were with all the new inventions and everything and limited
Can
work
you imagine
hours.
going from, well, any of them, going from like Revolutionary War to Civil War, going from Civil War to World War One? Yeah, like
Mhm.
everything we had was wool and leather and copper, and you have all this nylon. Like, they had to hate the people going into
Oh, yeah.
the
They're
wars.
soft. Look at them. Look at them. They're soft. They don't know anything about anything. They're dumb. They barely know how to wipe their butts. Same thing. Nothing's new. Every generation thinks the next generation's soft, and every younger generation thinks the older generation is out of touch. I don't think I'm any better. I'm just a dude with no kids. So I look at things slightly differently. And also, I have to blame it on my old partner who taught me to be a contrarian. So when everybody else is going right, I look over to the left path to see what's going on just to be different.
Yeah, I like to do that just to make sure I'm not getting, overlooking something or missing something, or, because
Hmm.
how often is, well, anyway. So I think we're on the same track there, but Woods has an actual question. So half an hour, 40 minutes into the show, we'll actually hit a question here. Thanks to Woods for this one. He asked this on Gizzard's show the other night. Is there any data, real world studies on hammer snag with revolvers? And I guess all of us last night, or the other night, was it last night? I wasn't in there, but the conversation seemed to go towards, maybe this was from Wednesday and I wasn't there, but it seemed to have gone immediately towards pockets and pulling it out of the pocket. So, I said, of course you can snag with a hammer on a pocket. But then they started bringing up holsters and inside the waistband, outside the waistband. So I don't think it's limited to any one style of carry. But he's really asking the part that is the big part of the question is there any real world data, like not just, hearsay or whatever? Like it seems like it would snag. Is there actually, have you ever seen anything? And you spend way more time around instructors and talking about these things than I do.
Not only instructors, but looking up stories since the 80s, you know what I mean, and books and everything. I haven't seen any study, but I've heard only one time have I heard about a snag, and it wasn't even with the gun itself. So I think it's one of those things that everyone knows it'll hang up, but not many people can tell you even an incident where it hung up. So yeah, everyone knows, but nobody can point out where it happens or at least give some data. I mean, what would that data say anyway? How would that study go? Hey, during the defense of your life, did the holster hang up? Did the hammer hang up on the holster or on your clothing?
I mean, maybe when the cops carried revolvers, that would have been a thing. And maybe in the, like if there was ever a debate, like whether we should go to pistols or not, maybe it came up. But they
think
carried
about it, bro.
Holsters.
What was the holsters that we had? I mean, not holsters. What were the revolvers that we had for the undercover cops? The Chief Special, right? The Chief Special and the Detective Special were the two snub noses from Smith and Smith and Colt. I'm sure also Charter Arms had theirs. The most so still were the ones with hammers because civilians carry too. But I mean, detectives, they issued these things and they all had hammers for the most part. I mean, to the point that they even had the Fritz. Is that the Fritz Special? They had the trigger guard hacked off halfway. So I don't think it was as big of a deal as people make it.
Well, and they'd bob
At
the
all.
hammers on those too. And I think it's also, even back in those days, that was like the 30s, I think, and 40s, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
In those days, there
20s,
probably was
30s,
still the same ratio of like 99% of people never drew a gun. We always think about gunfights, some sort of a movie thing, but in reality, it's like the bad guy gets the drop on you, or you pull your gun out before it starts seeming weird, and you've got your gun out, and there's no way anybody's getting a drop on you because you got it in your hand. So I think it's plays out probably a lot of times that way, where the gun never comes into play because somebody got a drop on you, and you're just going to push their gun out of their way, or something else. You're not pulling your gun out though. So it's just that there's not that many times in reality when we're drawing guns. Like the gun gets drawn, comfortably ahead of time, or it doesn't get drawn at all. I'm assuming. I mean, I definitely have not done any research on this, but I suspect it's the same back in the days. Is like back in the 40s, like somebody was probably like, you know what, I am drawing my gun every day, and I'm doing everything I can do to make sure that it draws good. Those mods you were talking about, where the rest of the people, like, they're not drawing their gun. The cops don't have to pull their gun out very fast very often. They pull their gun out when they feel like it at the speed they want to, and they're not going to, snag up on that.
There's a dude named Jelly Bryce. If you into old firearms lore and read about trainers, and I think who the hell Fat Electrician did a video on him. If you want to just go through it real fast, but I've read a book about him, and he was one of those guys. I think he was from Tulsa back in the day in the 20s, and he was one of those guys that just studied gunfights as a Tulsa cop, and he was pretty fast. He was a small guy, dressed really dapper. I think they called him Jelly because that was an old slang term for dudes that dress really nice.
Yep.
And he learned and studied and worked at gunfighting. And he was one of those dudes, that studied whether hammers got caught up or not. Guess what? He didn't have a Bob hammer on this guy. Not only that, he actually ended up training the FBI on gunfighting. He was the one that set up the first standards for the FBI that pretty much lasted from J. Edgar Hoover's earliest days to pretty much the 70s, I think, when they were doing that one-handed squat, one hand in the eye, one hand in the air FBI draw. that was all because of that one dude. So I think we sometimes get caught up in the minutia of it's like, how's this? Carry your gun on you. That's number one. Two, train with your gun, or maybe train with your gun. Two, carry it on you. Whatever. Oh yeah, I think that was a really good question.
Well,
The
my
media,
answer
us.
was I think that the way that essentially, I don't know if it's I don't think it's intentional, but the
Hmm.
result is that everybody hates revolvers, like, or at least doesn't, just dismisses them, doesn't even accept them. So,
Mhm.
I mean, seriously, what's a revolver that, except for like if one of the, every once in a while when a new company that doesn't make a revolver makes one, that's a little bit of a splash, or at least it's a news story. But there's
Mhm.
no thrill over any new revolvers that are coming out. Like that, I guess they, I don't know. I don't know why people have no interest in them as much, but I think that situation that no one carries them results in where can they even get data? Like there's not enough people carrying them to accumulate data hardly. Or
Well,
maybe
data
it's
was
because
already
people
accumulated.
that carry revolvers, we're smart enough to not get into shit, so we never need to draw it because we're so smart. Because we know that we have the ultimate machine that we don't have to want to
Nice.
bring that out, so we just don't even get the situations. We're all that smart.
Yeah, yeah. We have the katana of death.
Yep.
Um,
We're
in
like
my
swords. It's like we don't want to take our swords out because of that whole thing. So we keep our
we have to
sheath.
spill blood. Anytime I draw it, it has to spill blood. Um, I really believe because the data's there. We carried revolvers for the last 100 years. Uh, Semi-autos didn't get carried by civilians pretty much until the 90s. We were still talking smack about which semi-auto we carried in the 90s when 70% of people still carried 38 revolvers. I mean, they have the data on what ammo sold and what self-defense ammo sold. And if you go look it up, you'll find that 38s and 357s and 44 special and 44 magnum were still in the top 10 or top five, even after 9mm 45, 40, and 380 were out there. So let's stop acting like, that was some, well, I was going to say last century, but I guess everything from 24 years ago is last century. It's not that long ago that revolvers were carried and people got into gunfights. Bad guys don't want to get shot. So pretty much when you pulled out your 32 revolver, the stick up guy left, ran off, didn't want to get shot. And it was that simple. I mean, vest pocket guns were 380s and 32s and 38s and 22s and 25s. So now we're in the era of 9mm semi-autos that are flat, small, and about the size of old school Berettas. The Beretta Bobcat and the Tomcat. Well, now we have almost some nines about that size and way less because they're half polymer. Revolvers work. Revolvers work, but they take work, especially pocket revolvers. Easier to shoot some semi-autos, or at least has a better trigger pull for the most part, unless you're dealing with something like a car arms small semi-auto and they have those long double action triggers on them. So why not have a revolver? Reloads, but it has a different
So
look.
I've been listening. I can't. I mean,
Mhm.
I can't get like a thrill out of listening to gun conversations because I've just been listening to them for so long. I've mentioned this before, but they're just there's like 8 of them, and then you figure out which one you're in, or you figure out the 8 points of view that are in the
It's so
conversation,
true.
and it's just the
Yep.
same conversation over again. So I monitor them once in a while. I listen to them just to see who's saying what, and where are we at in the world of the 8 conversations again. But
I love
uh,
it.
what
It's
bothers
true.
me is I was okay because I could care less. I like guns, so, and
Mhm.
I'm not living a life where I'm at risk, but at the same time, I'm not stupid. I live near an international border that can be violent, and you can always walk into a bad situation or whatever. So I want to be prepared. But so anyway, my carry choices has gone back and forth and will change. I think there is a value to changing it depending on what you're doing. So if I'm going out shooting with my
Mhm.
friends and they've got night vision and all kinds of fancy rifles, I'm going to bring a bigger sidearm than when I'm just walking around going to Walmart or something. So anyway, so I'm fluid in the fact that I can comfortably carry a revolver and not feel like I'm underwhelmed or anything. And I can, same thing, I'll carry a big giant Glock with extra mags and stuff and not feel like I'm playing Rambo or whatever. But I'm okay, you know. So then I'm going through, you know, and I was a participant. It's not like I've always been like, oh, I won't be in these conversations. It's just I used to be in these conversations and roll up my sleeves and get into it with people. And then the frustrating part is you make a good point. Okay, I made a great point. Everybody understands my point now. And then 6 weeks later, you have the same conversation because this whole group of new people, and it's not like we all have like 8 people. We all sit around, we agree on something, and now we just, you know, move on. Like we're having these same
conversations. Dead.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so I've just been watching, and then it'll go from, and like I say, I guess I'm saying, back in the day when you had to kind of convince me to carry a second mag, I'm just like everybody. I'm like, I'm not carrying a second mag. But years ago, when it was like, well, we are in a, you know, part of the country where you could have, you know, just all kinds of bad guys coming over the hill, literally, and you're going to be ready for them, or you're going to be really ready for them. And I'm like, okay, I get that. So I can understand carrying a second mag. So it wasn't hard to talk me into a second mag, but I'll carry a second mag. So now I'm an advocate for carrying a second magazine. And I think another big piece of carrying a second magazine isn't a prolonged gunfight where you're going to need all your rounds, but because a semi-automatic requires a magazine to operate, and it can easily be damaged or lost or fall out or anything when you're going through all the stress of actual situation. I just think it's practical to have another one because it's so easy to drop one. And anyway, so I'm like, okay, second magazine, no problem. And I think for a good chunk of my time online, everybody was okay with second magazines. Now, all of a sudden, last year or two, oh no, there's this massive pushback on second magazines. So if you're carrying a second magazine, you're some kind of Rambo. You're carrying a second magazine. What do you think's going on in the world? Like, what are you carrying a second magazine for, tough guy? Like, were you not capable with your first magazine? And I'm like, if I'm going to hear this, then why aren't you saying this? All of these are the arguments for revolvers. Like, if you don't need a second magazine, what do you need a magazine for at all? Like, if you just need what's in your gun, then why not have a gun that's ultimately reliable and will work with the physical? Well, the answer to the question is red dots. You can't put a red dot easily on a revolver yet because they haven't done that yet to make it easy for people to buy one and then start buying red dots for it. And people are just too into red dots. They have to have a handle on top of their slide. Or, I mean, a red dot on top of their slide. But that's the thing that gets me is when they're like, well, I'm not going to carry a second magazine for my semi-auto, but I'm going to carry a semi-auto over a revolver. That just, you know, it's like if I was a boomer, that would be my glitch. Like I couldn't get past that. I can get past it because I don't care. But if I really somehow cared, I would not be able to get past that logic jump where if you don't need a second mag, then why would you want a mag at all? Like the mags are horrible. Well, I think a lot of people haven't had a failure with their magazine, so they don't have any idea what I'm talking about.
Nope. Most people don't shoot enough to actually be involved in the conversation on a experience-based level. So a lot of people are speaking in theory, and I've done it when I didn't know. You know, it's like, well, this seems illogical, and you just say what you say, and it really is, because you and I have been around a while. I've been into this since I was a kid. I was actually laughing about it with my mom because they thought something was wrong with me. You know, you're under 10 years old and you're reading Handgunners magazine and all that stuff, page for page until they fell apart. So I've been reading these conversations for over 40 years now. And what I'm finding out is, like you said, it's the same 8 conversations. It's who's better, Batman or Superman, who's stronger, the Incredible Hulk or Spider-Man. And it's just about guns. It's just about firearms.
Yeah.
And when it really comes down,
add the new one to the mix. Oh, now it's not Spider-Man, now it's Iron Man. Okay, whatever. It's the same conversation.
Oh, now it's red dots instead of iron sights.
Right. Because remember,
shut up.
It was do you need what do they call them? Night sights? Do you need glow in the dark sights? Do you need sights that have radioactive gas in them? Are you going to get cancer from that? Do you really need that, youngin? Like, I can remember being told, like, why do I want to put something radioactive in my pocket, kid? My grandparents didn't need a glow in the dark sights to see what they were shooting.
How about this one? How are you going to carry Mexican carry?
Oh, sorry, I coughed.
You mean appendix? Oh, Mexican carry. Who's carrying Mexican carry? What are you, a gunslinger now?
Actually,
and
I used to all the time, like, you know, just not for like long periods of time into stores and stuff, but like out at the range or whatever. I stick it out of my pocket all the time, like because some of us grew up with that. Yeah, just jamming it in your pants because you know how to do it. Like you've done it a million times. It's not going to fall out, but you're also not jumping up on a horse all around and jumping fences or something.
But it's the most ridiculous thing. Also, appendix carry. So people gonna continually argue about what's best, and usually it's people that have never done it, or some people have done it one way because they were trained that way by their institution, and they've never thought outside the box. Because I hear a lot of cops, a lot of military guys, and they're talking about how they were trained. Well, you're not a cop and you're not a military guy anymore, so you don't wear that kind of equipment. You don't have a war belt. You don't have a pistol belt. You have a pair of jeans on and a stiff belt. How are you going to carry? Well, I'm not going to point a gun at my Johnson. Look, bro, I don't know how you're built, but my Glock 19 is not pointed at my Johnson at any time. Plus, the trigger's completely covered up. They don't go bang for no reason. I mean, I don't know how many years I'm going carrying appendix, mainly because carrying it on my side is ridiculous. I'm already wide as a bus. Putting something else that makes me wider makes no difference. But putting something out front that I can reach with both hands, because that was a thing at one time too. Can you cross draw? If something is wrong with your strong or dominant hand, can you get to your firearm with the other one? Well, if it's at 3 o'clock, how do you get to it with your left hand if you're, Zoptic like myself? I'm gonna have to grab my belt buckle and pull my pants halfway around and then reach over. No, stop it. How's this? Get out and shoot, train, actually take some realistic self-defense training, do some force on force, and then you figure it out on your own. Or you can just keep listening to people and banter back and forth and just have a good time doing that too.
Yeah, seriously, and there's nothing wrong with that. And you're kind of being sarcastic, but at the same time, it's good advice because
Oh no, I wasn't being
99% of
sarcastic.
us. But
I wasn't being sarcastic at all.
Some unlucky people might, but most of the people aren't. So
Mhm.
it's really just theoretical. It's like having a parachute on your car. Like, should you put a parachute on the car in case you go reeling down a hill? Like, well, I'm not going to
Yep.
stop you, but it's probably not going to happen. Never happened to anybody else yet. But it's a free country if you want to put it on there.
Oh yeah. No, I wasn't being sarcastic. I mean, it's fun conversations, and hell, I'm on a whole podcast about that conversation. Actually, multiple podcasts. So yeah, it's fun to talk about. Just like sports networks talk about who's going to be the best team next week, who's going to win this, who's going to be next season. Gun people do the same thing, and I think some
what
people
shoes were they wearing when they won that thing, and then now why should I or shouldn't I buy those shoes? Like, okay,
exactly.
you can have that conversation. It's like you put them shoes on, doesn't make you mean you're going to win nothing, but you can also probably get some advantage by wearing their shoes. Like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, shoes going to make you faster, bro. Every year in school, it made us faster when we got those new shoes. Especially when you could pump them up and had the heels that lit up. Come on, man.
For me, the only shoes I remember liking were I can't remember what they were called, but they had a little pocket in them, and I was like, that's genius. Why not have another pocket? Because back in the days, pockets were the shit, like having a lot of pockets. You remember those? They had like those little pocket on the side.
No, I don't.
I don't remember.
Never a shoe guy.
Probably kangaroos or something.
Oh, yeah. Yep. You're right.
I mean, they weren't cool or nothing, but that's the only ones I remember. Nope. And I was a little kid. It wasn't like I was in high school getting these, but I can remember that's the only time I ever really cared about shoes, I think. I usually,
they were kangaroos,
thinking about shoes, I would essentially get told like what I needed for summer camp or what I needed for some adventure that we were going on with scouts. And that's the shoes that I would ask for. Like, that's the only time I ever asked for anything was like, I'm going to need these kind of maybe like mountain boots or whatever they're called back in the day, like hiking boots. And if I got those, I just wear those to school because those are my shoes now. But I didn't do sports or nothing, so I didn't care about any kind of brands or anything.
I love my mom because she didn't fall for that new shoes, whatever fad was the okie doke. And the one time she did, it was when white leather sneakers were a big thing. I begged, pleaded, and whined, and she finally bought me a pair of all leather Nikes, white, with a white stripe. And I got them, and of course, immediately cleaned them because that's what you do. I walked out of the door, and my dog stepped on my sneakers. One step, both feet hit the ground. My dog ran up on me, stepped on both sneakers with red mud that never came out again.
I think you mentioned that before, but that's why that's our experience, right? That's how we learn. And you're not going to get mad at the
Yep.
dog. It's like he's being a dog.
Nope.
And yep. It's probably
I
better
just
than
looked down.
some like friend or something, because then you could hate a friend. You can't really hate your dog.
I can't hate my dog, and I think because my wife goofs on me because I'm not a shoe guy, and of course she goes, "You're the worst black guy they ever made, dude. Like you don't care what your shoes look like." And I'm like, "I'm just not that dude. My dog got me over that hump." I was like, "No, running around making sure my shoes are spotless. I was born and raised in the country. There's a mud hole with your name on it somewhere that you're gonna step in eventually." Chuck Taylor's, heck yeah.
Or
I
at
got
least like I
Ultimas
can't
now.
imagine having expensive shoes or shoes that I cared about at least, because that's just something I don't care about caring about. Like if I just want to step on something that isn't going to hurt me, but yeah, if I get them dirty or something, like I don't, that's their shoes. I don't care about them like that.
The shoes, they're on my feet. Like if somehow I continually got my belt buckle dirty, yeah, that'll be a thing. Like what the hell's going on? And why do I keep falling? Outside of that, I don't care. Chucks were the stuff though, man. Chucks were cool. They weren't expensive. You could afford them, and they were just Chucks.
Yeah, and whenever I started skateboarding, those were my favorites, just because they were kind of like having a rubber glove or something. Like they gripped onto the skateboard tape or whatever, pretty good, and they were affordable. Like so you didn't have to spend a bunch of money on them.
What are those shoes? The Ultimas, I think they're called.
Oh, dude, I just got a pair. The Ultima Maritime, whatever. You got a pair, don't you?
Yep.
Yeah, I bought a pair. I saw them at a store, brand new. Still had the like rubber nubs, like they never even been worn, but size too small for me. I bought them anyway. I don't know if you've met Scott, but Scott's one of the guys that's in all the videos from back in the day. I called everybody I know right away. I'm like, that would want them. And I'm like, hey, does anybody want these? And he's like, yeah, those will fit me. So I got a brand new pair and gave it to him. But yeah, that was super cool because they're like $100 or something. I got them for $25 at a place. So I almost had a pair. I was so stoked because they're like a size smaller. They're like a 12. I'd probably cram into a 13. For those, I would cram into a 13. Probably want a 14 if they make them. But at 12, like I'm not cramming into a 12. But it was so frustrating, like seeing them for $25. I know I'm buying them, and then because I know somebody's gonna be able to use them. And then that was the first time, honestly, I'd ever really picked them up and felt them. I've looked at them at SHOT Show, but I always ask her, "Can I get one of these? Can you get me a pair?" No. I'm like, all right, I'm putting them back down because I don't even want to I don't even want to know about them because I know I like them, but I don't even want to be moping about it. And I'm not buying them. They're $100. So anyhow, yeah, so I definitely know about them. I know how well they're made. I never knew they were the same. Essentially, they're like 1,000 denier nylon. They're the same nylon. Maybe they're 500, but they're the same nylon as an Alice pack is made out of. And I knew they were green, but I had no idea they were made out of that kind of nylon. Like they must be some of the strongest shoes out there. I mean, literally, they're made for SEALs to be on boats. So I mean, they are. I mean, I knew that they were made well, but I had no idea how well the materials are. I'd almost pay $100.
So I got mine. I waited for them to be on sale because I'm tactically thrifty, and that's just the way I roll. So I got them for like $75 or something like that. It's a black pair, and
yeah, I buy them any day for that.
Yeah, because I mean I wear size 14, so pretty much you get what you get. And I was able to get those. I wish they had them in wide though, because it's a little narrow. And then what you call it has them.
A store or another
Combat flip flop. Combat flip flops also makes a pair.
Okay.
They're not as well made. They're made in Bogota, Colombia. They fit better, so I have a pair of those. And I wear them all the time.
Those are made to be shoes, where the Ultimas are made for like issue, like they're made for Marines to not
totally
Marines, but SEALs to not fall off of a submarine and shit.
Yeah, totally different. Is the difference in a pair of Red Wings and a pair of Timberlands? That's the difference. Red Wings are serious work boots, and Timberlands are something you put on and cuff your pants and go to a club.
They look like work boots, but yeah, they're like
they're not work boots. I made that mistake because I never grew up around Timberlands. I got out of the Marine Corps and I came to work as a locksmith, which you're working everywhere. You're working construction sites, you're working in people's homes, you're working anywhere there's a lock. And I wanted a decent pair of shoes, and I was wearing my Marine Corps combat boots, which fit everywhere, but you keep having to of course, in my day, you kept a coat of wax on them. You know what I mean? And sometimes when you went down and you're working at somebody's house, the wax comes off on people's carpet. And I was like, I can't have that because one lady lost her damn mind, and I totally understand that I got, Marine Corps boot wax on the carpet. So I was looking for a pair, and I bought a pair of Timberlands, thinking they were work boots. I don't even know if it lasted months before I just threw them in the garbage and went and bought a pair of Red Wings and worked my way through two pair of hills of those before I tossed those.
Dude, we never talked about that specific thing before, but my boots were like they only gave us 2 pair of boots, right? And you just they sew your name in them, and you're yours. It's not like you mix them up or anything, and you got to take care of them. But I mean, I've seen I can remember what my boots look like after whatever the initial training, whenever it is, they actually give a shit what your boots look like. In the Army, they give a shit. That's what I'm getting at, is they don't really give a shit what your boots look like. I had to shine them. I had to clean them, but like they weren't brand new looking. Like it's like, let's go walk around and get them all dirty or whatever and get them all beat up, because a lot of times you just get them beat up crawling around, because they're doing a lot of crawling around in basic training, right? So I got them all beat up, and I would clean them and polish them, but they'd look like I polished an old shitty broken thing. Like they had lumps and stuff and like breaks and tears, and all I did is polish those tears, and they were happy because they just wanted to know you wasted a bunch of time doing it. They could care less about the final result, I guess is what I'm saying. So my question is, and I'm like, and I didn't care because they never made me care, and I don't personally care, like say what my boots look like, but I have thought about it before, because you see like a movie, and I can't remember if in Full Metal Jacket they actually showed a close-up of boots or not, but you know, that kind of movie where they're talking about Marine boot camp, they all take a different level of serious. Do they really, like, if you fuck your boots over, do they expect you to get them back to like brand new condition, or is it like that where you just have to get them, like they have to know that you spent an hour polishing up your broken, dirty boots?
You get them as close to new as you could possibly get them. Now, what we had in boot camp, we got issued 2 pair, a pair of parade boots and a pair of boots you wear all the time. The parade boots are what you wore exactly Sunday to church. But the other boots had to shine too. But the goddamn parade boots had to glow.
Okay, we had 2, but if one got wet, you'd wear the other. Like we used both of them from what I remember.
Yeah, the Marine Corps boot thing, it's hilarious because now they didn't have it after Desert Storm. They had the boots that were rough on the outside because, of course, for desert wear. And it really never came back. We had jungle boots at the same time. The Vietnam era jungle boots were the green ones, right? You remember those? They had the green and the black leather.
I can remember buying. Well, it may be Korean. I really don't know the difference, but definitely that green boot were so cheap back in the day because nobody wanted them. Everybody hated them. I think what was the deal? Some of them had a steel and some of them didn't, but for some reason you could get some for really cheap, and then the nice ones were just barely more expensive.
So the nice ones were actually the good ones with the punji stick. They had the steel in there for the punji sticks, so they wouldn't go through your foot. Those are the jungle boots. Well, to look like you were old school, understand, I was in from 88 to 93. JB's jungle boots were something that were issued to Vietnam era Marines. And if you were still in the fleet, you had some of those. But those were what the old school dudes wear. So our young asses ran out looking for the thing so we can look salty. Bitch, how you gonna look salty with an E2 on your freaking collar? I don't know. You're trying to look salty with all of a year in the Corps, and you're running out buying jungle boots and the faded camis that we pick up from the secondhand store, so we wouldn't look so looking boot as hell. Anyway, that's what we would try to do. So I had the old school green JBs, and then the Marine Corps changed up to have the jungle boots that were black nylon. So we got those, and those are just as cool, and you didn't have to go hunt them or end up with the Chinesium jungle boots that fell apart.
Yeah.
So those were cool. And then by the time I got out in 93, you could just pretty much have a black all nylon boot for a little while in the Corps. So I had like an all nylon high tech boot, which was cool because it felt like a sneaker compared to the boots. And then I got out, and the Marine Corps switched over to that all pretty much inside out leather, almost looked like horse leather.
Yeah, like the
holsters.
suede.
And
Those are fucking nice. I'd have an Air Force pair of them. Yeah, they're neat.
okay,
Well, that's what I was gonna
yeah.
say. When
So
I got out before Shield, so nothing was tan for me. Everything was woodland. You had at least, well, that's what I was going to ask. Things went tan, but first they gave them to spec ops, and then they gave them to Air Force probably, and then they gave them to generals and shit, and then they gave them to Army, and then when everybody else has it, if there's something left over, the Marines get it. So did you guys even get tan by the time you were out?
I mean, they were bringing them in, but I was gone. Most
It'd be
part,
like,
we didn't even have.
here's your all woodland shit and a tan backpack. Good luck with that. Go
Yep.
nuts.
Yep. It's really funny when you listen to people tell you the history of the Corps and you were in, and you're like, yeah, the Marine Corps went over to the 9mm Beretta in 1985. I'm like,
Yeah, right.
Okay, not really. And oh yeah, they changed over to this, and I'm like, no, they didn't. Everything doesn't change when it gets adopted. It takes years and it goes by levels. So being in the air wing, we supported airplanes and helicopters. We kind of got stuff maybe right before reservists, because we're not in the field for the most part. So we still had olive drab mop level 4 suits in the desert. If you look at some of the old Gulf War stuff, you'll see dudes in woodland camouflage in the desert, full mop level 4 containment suits. I guess people would recognize it as that, but they're for nuclear, biological, chemical warfare. They were in freaking olive drab. That's what we had, period. And slowly that stuff got brought in. But then after the Gulf War ended, you just went back stateside to your unit and you used what was there. So
It was all
it
green
was
again.
funny watching. So you could have and I love these a-holes that do clone rifles and get all anal about it. And I'm like, yeah, life didn't work like that, bro. Life didn't have a B, and a C like iteration. There was A, B, A, C, B, C, B, D, like a combination of all of these things. They weren't just, here's your M16A1. All right, give us that. Here's your
Give us that back.
M16A2. Yeah. It's like, no. Well, this unit only had this. No, that's not the way it worked. This gun only had those features. No, they didn't. And it's funny to watch it. So you see people like, what's his name? Vickers, Larry Vickers, and he's talking about the guns they adopted. And you listen to these clone guys. Well, that's not clone correct. Well, that dude was there, and you're watching it because you saw it in a video game, and you looked it up on Wikipedia and Jane Defense Weekly. I'll listen to the dude that was there. At least
Well, and as
now.
I listen to more of these interviews and stuff, it's like, yeah, what we would have thought was like the way it is was the way it was for that particular unit. So if we heard the history of like something went down and then we went, because we're going to ask that question, what were you carrying? And then, okay, now we know what that unit was carrying. Unless they also ask the question, where did that stuff come from? That's when you figure out like, oh yeah, we went over and stole it from the Air Force, or like, yeah, the Marines were sleeping, so we went in and grabbed it from their Jeep or something, like, because all that kind of shit happens. And or else somebody goes, oh, like so and so's dad worked at a place and he just sent us a box, and now we all had these scopes on our rifles. Like nobody asked nobody, they just did it or something. And then yeah, somebody 60 years later is like, well, I've seen a snapshot of what they were doing, so they must have been issued. Like, not really. Like that's just what they happen to have in their hands that day.
So I think
a lot of times,
again, yeah, you're 100% right. I think I'm aware of firearms and firearms history more than a regular dude. But life has a way of freaking slapping you upside the head and going, you know nothing. So I'm talking to one of the guys on our front door. Understand, law enforcement has a lot of dudes that were prior military. Some didn't come in immediately. Some, this is their second career. So they came in the freaking law enforcement at 40. So one of the guys I was talking to was a Vietnam vet. And I think he said 60. He went to Nam in 68 or 69. And I said, so did you ever get issued the M14? He said, nope, we had M1 Garands in boot camp. And then when I got to Nam, they gave me an M16. Yeah, but according to Wikipedia, nope. He said he never touched the M14 the entire time he was in the Marine Corps. But how is that possible? You joined in 68. You went to NAM in 69. And then, you realize, yeah, that's not how things work.
Well, what was that one
Recruits
gun that
didn't get
takes
the
a 45 ACP mag? I forget what it's called. It's a machine
Oh,
gun.
the
It's like
Belial? Oh,
is that how it is? Yeah.
wait a minute.
But that was a Marine gun, so somebody had, at least thousands of people were carrying them. I don't think they liked them because
Wait a
they
minute.
didn't last very long. Am I thinking of the right one?
What
No,
are you
not
talking about?
I'm talking about. It was kind of like a car, and it looks like an M1 carbine, but it takes 45 ACP
The
mags,
rice,
and
the
it had a
ricing?
full auto. It was a U.S. gun.
I think you're talking. Yeah, the ricing might have been one of them.
Okay.
And what's his name? Yeah, ricing. Because Johnson
I
had
shot
a
it. I shot it.
semi-automatic 30.
If you remember, like a million years ago, I think it was like 2010 when I was down at Eric's for Halloween. Me and him,
Okay.
or me and Haas were down there, and when he was filming his Halloween stuff, we shot his. I think it is a Rising, but anyway, it's a full auto thing that looks kind of like a Ruger 1022, honestly, and then it holds 1911 mags.
Yep.
And I can't remember if he was saying it or somebody was saying though that because it's the first time I even heard about the gun, that it's semi-auto 1911, so a carbine version of a 1911, or what am I saying, 1911?
Yep.
45 ACP. But I guess the idea was if you saw a tunnel or a cave or something, you could flip it to full auto, drop a mag as sort of a cover fire or whatever. But nobody liked it. And it didn't work good, and it was shitty. But I'm just saying those things had to be by the thousands, so there had to be at least 1,000 Marines that had carried those, and they probably hated them. But at least what I'm saying, there's definitely all kinds of experiences out there. As you were saying that, I'm thinking too that like if you were on a boat, you're getting different guns than if you're somewhere else, and if you're in airplanes, you're getting different guns again because they all have different what's that called, like missions and shit, like all different what they're gonna be doing with their guns.
Hold on, dude. I'm trying to pull it up. Rising M50 45 ACP SMG at Iraqi veteran 11 years ago.
There you go.
Man, the internet never lets you down, bro. Yep, it's the old Iraqi veteran, like how he had the place set up. So
well, now he
just
bought land or something. That was neat back in the day. That was one of our. You met Haas?
Yeah. Oh no, I never met Haas.
Okay.
Haas is responsible for a lot of stuff I dug, though.
Well, shit. Well, I haven't seen him at SHOT for years, but obviously, if I see him, I'll try to make sure you guys smash into each other. See what I don't know what he told me everything he did, but he wasn't the first Marine I ever met. Marines were mean to me in the Army. I'll just say it. I was in wherever I was at, they had a Marine. I forgot what the hell you were doing. I think it was MPs or something, or whatever you call MPs. But they had some building in our fort. And whenever we do PT past them, because I was always in the medium, if I was lucky running, like I was never the fast running. And I'm sure the Marines can watch a bunch of fast guys run by, a bunch of medium guys, and a bunch of slow guys, and they'll yell at the slow guys because we're Army. And what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Get yelled at. So they would yell at us all the time because I was always the slow running group for the most part. So that was my first experience with Marines, is them being mean to me. But I never really had that much experience. Like we don't really cross paths that much. So Haas might have been one of the first Marines that I ever spent any time with. So we were, hanging out for a couple of months, driving around. But anyway, so when he was telling me all the stuff that he did, I didn't have anything to compare it to. And now I know so many Marines just over the years and having conversations like this, like we've had over the years, that like I've got more to compare it to. But I wouldn't be able, and especially listening to some of the things, like I'll listen to a military interview. I'm pretty sure he was in MARSAC or did something with MARSAC because as I'm hearing stuff and hearing like locations and things, I'm like, oh, I've heard this story before. Where did I hear this story? Oh yeah, Haas was telling me about this. So anyway, like I have no idea where you guys have maybe ever crossed paths back in the day, but he's a little younger than us. So he was in, I think like in the mid 90s or something is when he went in.
Yeah, I got out in 93, in the middle of 93, which is crazy. The day I got out of the Corps, the girl that ended up hooking up with, and I was, stepdad to her daughter for a little while, during our relationship. Her daughter was born on the day I got out the Corps. I thought that was just the coolest thing, which, it doesn't mean anything to anybody but me. Yeah, I'm looking at the old video now. I'll fast forward, but it was pretty cool. that and immediately upon getting out of the Corps, I don't know how many other veterans go through this, but I had to re emerge myself into being a civilian.
Oh, you have
And
to
it
deal with
was,
that. We didn't have to deal with that. You're the only ones that I think that have that kind of
oh, really?
experience. I think so, because you guys really have to. Well, I mean, back in the day, it's different now, I guess, after 20 years of global war on terror. But back in the day, for sure, like nobody joined the Marines if you didn't want to die to some extent, because you knew you were the first ones to
Yeah.
walk into bullets. Like that's how we fought back in the day, and you have to know that you're joining that kind of brotherhood where you're gonna, you're willing to do that. There's other people that might have to do something kind of like that once in a while, but Marines are signing up to just do it. So I think there's, I don't, well,
Yeah.
it's
I
a
mean,
common
that's why I
solve from
joined.
afar, but I mean, I don't know any Marine that didn't know that. Nobody, like I knew guys in the Army who joined the reserves and didn't know that they had a 2 week obligation because they just didn't pay attention as they were signing up. And like we were telling them in basic, like, dude, you're going to have to go for 2 weeks and do training. Because back in the day, that was the biggest annoyance of being in the reserves or the guard, is that you'd have to go do training. Except some people was like, that's the best part because then we get paid for 2 weeks. Because a lot of people back then, it was just a second job, a good job because you have a military job or a government job.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, these guys, but I don't think too many people join the Marines accidentally. I shouldn't say that. That probably
No.
does happen. But
Oh, they do. It's great when we sit around in boot camp and tell a story about why we joined. It is mine was I was slightly embarrassed, but F everybody. And I joined because I felt it was my duty, and I'm not going to blink or shy away from that. That's what I did. And if it sounds Pollyanna, I don't give a F. Um, Other dudes joined because they like the uniform. Other guys joined because the family were in and they wanted to be in. But yeah, you don't join the Marine Corps going, this is going to be easy. It's going to be a layup.
or this is going to be a good paycheck. Like this will be or like a good career advancement. Because that was the other thing. You join the Air
Hmm.
Force or the Navy because they're going to teach you some kind of useful computers or something. I mean, obviously there's jobs everywhere for that, but for the most part, you'd join the Air Force or the Navy if you wanted to see the world and come out with some kind of degree or something, or use
Or
some
skill.
kind of skill. Yeah, and then you join the
Hmm.
Army if you wanted to come out with well, I can dig a hole or I can build a engine back up or something, like those kind of skills, like skills, but I guess more less of those technical skills. But essentially, again, like the mindset, at least back in the 80s, was if you join the Marines, you're coming out and you've been in infantry. So maybe they
Yep.
teach you something else, but you're infantry also. So yeah, nobody joined the Marines because like, oh, I'm going to be so much ahead after I'm out of the Marines. Like, nah. So anyway, yeah,
Yep.
it's different.
Always funny. I like this next question if you're going to pull it up.
Yeah, which one? This one?
Yep.
Our lever gun still. So Woods did ask a couple of good gun questions, and we eventually do answer gun questions on the show. So thanks, Woods, for
Yeah.
the question. He's asking, are lever guns still relevant? Thinking that it's not a scary black rifle, and you live in a tyranny state. He
Uh-huh.
actually is living in a state where I'm sure a capable lever action is easier to obtain at this point. But I've seen,
Hello.
well, obviously they've come out with new gadgets and rails and stuff. So now there's a reason to talk
Uh-huh.
about them and people are getting paid to talk about them. But aside from all that, what do you think about levers? You got time to keep talking? I shouldn't even ask how long you got
Yeah.
today. We're already 90 minutes in.
Oh yeah, I'm good today. Yeah, I'm good today. Um, we can roll till the end. Lever actions have always been relevant. Lever actions have always been good. They serve as a civilian, as a citizen, talking about defending yourself in your home or right outside your home. They're good out to 50 to 100 yards on pistol calibers and much further in rifle calibers. So I think they're relevant. They won't stop being relevant um, because for home defense, no one wants to be shot. And if a guy can run a 16, 18, or 20-inch lever action, and you have between what, 8 and, depends on capacity, 8 and 12 to 14 rounds, no one's really going to mess with that. So I think they're good to go. And I think the ability to put rails on them now that you can put a light on it, that you can attach a modern sling that hangs like a modern rifle sling, that the gun is out of your way when you move around. I think it makes them very good for what they are. Since they run manually, the downside is yes, you could short stroke a lever action, but put in work. And truthfully, with the cowboy action kits that you can put on them, you could make it into a short stroke, fast lever action defensive firearm and not really be put at much of a disadvantage in some ways comparatively. Again, let's talk real life. Bad guys don't hang around to be shot. Now, if we're talking about extended gunfights, yeah, you'll be at a disadvantage. But if you
Maybe.
modernize your lever action, yeah, exactly, maybe. If you run your gun, you practice with it, you shoot it. Again, if you're part of any shooting sport with your lever action, you're way ahead of many, many people with a semi-automatic rifle, just because of your use, your ability to hit targets accurately. And if you put a red dot on that sucker or learn how to run the buckhorn sights in home defense distances, you're a force to be reckoned with. And then in a state like mine, where of course they want to paint anybody that defends themselves with a firearm as a gun nut, good luck with trying to play my, my 1890s technology off as some kind of crazy gun nut. Nobody's
I mean,
buying that bullcrap.
except for a flintlock or something, and then like a bolt action. That's got to be essentially what most people consider like the most primitive of guns, even lower than a
Mhm,
revolver because you can't shoot. Well, they don't think you can shoot it very fast.
mhm. Oh, look, he was what? Fighting the war in the West. What are you going to say, Chief? What are you going to try to play me off as?
So I
You
think
know what I mean?
I've been saying this for years that lever guns are super competent. Um, I mean, there's a reason they still exist, and they, like you said, they're from the 1890s and stuff. A lot of guns from back then exist, but they haven't prevailed or continued to evolve. I don't necessarily hate or like the new stuff. If it gets people to buy it because they like the rails or whatever, I don't care. But a sling and a lever action has done awesome. And like literally, can you have more time on the clock? 140 years of the wars with the Native Americans on both sides
Hmm.
using lever actions all that time, predominantly. If the AK-47 didn't exist, they'd be scared shitless of the lever action. Like it's a massively good firearm. It's just that when you stick it next to an M16 and an AK-47, it's not the same. But the thing is, you can play. I've always said this too. You can, what's the word? Like society, like you just said, society doesn't even, they disregard it completely. So you run out of your house with a lever action, and they're like, "Okay, Grandpa." You run out of your house
Hmm.
with an AR-15, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, I don't know what to think." Right? Like, who
He's
knows how
crazed. He's a madman.
they could go any direction on that, but probably not. I mean, I'm all for AR-15s. I think it's the perfect home defense for a million reasons. I'll stand on that hill all day.
100%.
But again, but I will acknowledge also that you have no idea what's going to happen in your neighborhood. Maybe if you lived in a cul-de-sac and everybody knew you, there'd be no problem. But in the rest of the world, I think you might know one or two neighbors and they might know you, but who knows what they think in the middle of the night. And again, you're out there with an AR-15. It's the right thing to do, but yeah, you're going to have that unknown. But you flip it to a lever action, and I imagine nobody's even going to. It'd be like carrying out a broom or a cane or some shit, right? Like people, or a vacuum hose or something. Like people aren't even going to acknowledge it as a dangerous thing. I bet, even less than a shotgun. I think.
Truthfully, I mean, I've been thinking about it because I like the new things. Now I have a Henry, a big boy steel 357 Magnum. Sadly, I don't have the King's loading gate on the side, so I still have the tube. You got to raise up like a 22 when you load them. But I'm looking at something like that, right? And I'm like, the modern furniture on it, and I'm just talking about the 4 inch, so you can mount a light because I think a light is necessary.
Yeah,
Um,
smart for
in a
sure.
home defense firearm. Yeah. I look at that. And also for me, I have a problem with the buckhorns. I never really learned to shoot them well because I have a couple of different Henrys and I kind of suck at it comparatively. And I'm like, yeah, I would put a red dot on this thing. It's just a sighting system. You know what I'm saying? So I put a red dot on it. I'd put the front end. I would, if I had my druthers, I would like figure out a way to paint Picatinny, or not Picatinny, what do you call it, M-LOK 4N, to have it look as close to wood as possible, just so it still maintains that oldish look when you look at it, even though it has a different capability. And the reason why is because I live in this state, a state that's stupid, that my peers that are going to be on the jury aren't really my peers whatsoever.
I
So the
wonder if somebody
closer,
carves, like ladder, right? Not ladders, I suppose, but rail covers. I wonder if somebody carves those out of wood so you could literally put wood on the rails.
you could either do wood. It's something you can do. I'm sure there's something out there, if nothing more than a Cerakote job. But
I mean,
I'm
that would
like,
be lighter. Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, look, anybody who's stupid, and there's a lot of stupid people out there, they're not going to like the idea of a gun. But when it's a cowboy gun, because that's what people are going to call it, you're not really seen as a mad lad. And you're still very effective with a 357 Magnum out of 16-inch barrel with defensive ammo. It's going to smack hard.
So whenever I'm looking at AK-47 stuff, they always say that an AK-47 is essentially the same as a lever action in 30-30.
30-30, yep.
Ballistically, power, whatever you want to call it, like the different characteristics, its capabilities and stuff are really similar. So I think that is probably my go-to. It's just, I don't know, some kind of weird, no, not weird, but generic version of the, history of the gun. I'm going to say 30-30 is sort of the gold standard. So go, Winchester 30-30 is
right
fine. But
35 round.
Well, that's the thing, because is there a platform with as many calibers as there is for lever? I mean, let's put it this way: lever action is literally every caliber there is. You can get shotgun lever actions, you can get 22s, you can get everything that there is in a lever action. I'm pretty sure
The AR-15, and the lever action are just one's a modern version of the other one.
That's a good point. There are shotgun AR-15s even, yeah.
Yep. And I like them both. Go ahead, man.
But I'm just saying that Woods is talking about getting the carbine, or essentially the handgun version of a lever action, and that is super capable. I don't know if I still have mine. I might not. I don't remember. But that's a super capable being able to carry a revolver and a carbine with the same. I mean, I totally get that with like 357 or 44. Okay, I'll shut up.
When you check the ballistic divided inch, and you watch a 357 Magnum round go from the 4 to 6-inch defensive revolver to a 16-inch, 16 to 20-inch carbine, you watch that power out of that thing come close to a 30-30 round at the barrel. I forgot who I read. Just when you read so many things, they call it 357 Magnum out of lever action a schizophrenic round. It's like because it does one thing in a revolver and it does a total different thing when you put it into a barrel that allows it to burn all the powder up. And it hits hard and it puts targets down. And you can have the same round because I got my Smith & Wesson 357 686 with a 4-inch barrel, and then my lever action. I don't feel undergunned. You know what I mean? Oh my God, that's all I have. Well, okay. I mean, reload time's going to take forever, but if you're reloading in a gunfight as a citizen, more than likely there'll be a made-for-TV movie at minimum made about you.
Or it's the beginning of some bigger shit, right? Like then your situation isn't going to be one of many stories or something. Yeah.
Yeah, you're at the beginning of Red Dawn.
Yeah, that's the way to say it. Exactly. Hey, Red Dawn next Saturday is the anniversary of when it was released. It was released on August 10th, 1984. So I was just posting some stuff and I happen to have it on top of my head. So since you brought it up, next weekend we'll have a Red Dawn episode. You're going to be around next weekend?
Awesome. I think I should.
I used to do I've done watching parties before where, we would just watch the movie at the same time. But I don't think I got that in me. But we'll do some kind of Red Dawn stuff since it's been a couple of years since I've done any Red Dawn stuff.
Let's do it. Hell, it's one of gives me a theme for the week.
Yeah.
It gave me a theme all week. Red Dawn. But yeah, 357 works. It's all together compared to 44. less expensive because with 357 you can use 38s. 38s are cheaper than 357s, but the same isn't true of 44 and 44 special, 44 Magnum, 44 special. 44
Well,
Magnums
and the
most times
44
cheaper.
guns are so much heavier too.
I didn't even realize that. You're probably right. Yeah.
At least the revolvers are bigger. The rifles are probably about the same, but the revolvers will be a lot bigger. I mean, it's more
Yeah,
capable
you're
though. If I'm going out where there's going to be a bear or some shit, then yeah, I'm bringing a
yeah.
44 because who cares? But yeah, if you're going to be, I don't know. I can't imagine too many places where I wouldn't be comfortable with a 357 and a 357. I don't know. Is there a Winchester 357? I don't like the thing I don't like about the pistol caliber levers, modern pistol caliber levers, is they always put a safety on them, and I do not want a safety on my lever gun.
Henrys don't have safeties.
Oh, okay. I didn't know about that.
Yeah,
They're probably making
Rossi
theirs.
has a stupid
It's probably
safety.
the imports. It's probably an import thing, or else it's just a
Probably.
like what do they call like a culture thing. Maybe they think they need it or something.
Probably. I know Rossi has it, and Rossi's made in Brazil, right?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
And
I
and
don't. I mean,
then
last I knew.
we got my people with Taylor and Company sells the Italian guns, but I think if they come with them, they remove them, or they might not because the design is old because they use a classic.
Yeah, that's a true. It depends on if they're really using old plans or if they're just made up something. And some of them are using like old Colt plans or old whatever brand plans.
This is funny.
So the last one we got from Woods, unless somebody else wants to throw another question out there, we do have a ton of people watching, and I'm paying for X now. So thanks to our Patreons, there's a scroll at the bottom of the screen. Our Patreons make projects like this possible. So we have a Patreon, which is a bunch of people who are capitalists that like to that appreciate what we've got going on and like to participate. Some of them buy us a cup of coffee each month, like $5 or something. Some of them are buying us lunch. There's a couple of people that are dropping $25 a month for our projects
Ooh.
here. And we appreciate that. It allows us to have our servers up, which run the websites. We're gun websites because we have lots and lots of websites out there. And as we've built those over the years, the Patreons made that possible. And so anyway, thanks to the folks that make it possible for us to be here. And well, Tony, why don't you take a second? And you've got Patreon in addition to let people know how they can support what you're doing out here.
So you can support what I'm doing through Second is for Everyone on Patreon. You can support what I do by going to diversityshoot.com and donating there to our PayPal. We also have Venmo, and we have Venmo, PayPal. What is the other one? Cash App. And we have Cash App. No, Cash App. I got to set up Zelle. I'll probably do it this weekend because people keep asking for it. So we're going to have all of those available. And if you want to donate to the Cash App or any of the others, you can actually contact me at tony@diversityshoot.com, and I'll give you that information. Tony@diversityshoot.com. I think it's like $2A4E or 2A4E $. But contact me and I'll let you know. We just try to make things work out. We've been having sold out events, and that actually helped pay for the food because we serve pizza at our diversity shoots. And since we're selling out, that's more pizzas. I mean, we have like 30 people come through, so 2 slices of pizza each for 30 people, 60 slices, and 8 slices in a pie. You do the math. We sell, 7 pizzas. We do cheese and pepperoni. We do the cheese pizza because there are people who have to eat kosher or have to eat halal, and cheese pizza works fine for them.
And
That's
don't
the
want
only.
pepperoni. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I was going to ask, how did that pizza go? You mentioned when you went to
the kosher?
Yeah, when you went to the, why can't I think of the name of it? It has a cool name.
We Shoot.
We Shoot. Yeah, when you
We
went to
Shoot.
We Shoot,
Yep,
they had a
We
new
Shoot.
pizza place. How did that go?
It was good. Okay, it wasn't a pizza place. It's a coffee shop that also makes pizza and pastries and sandwiches. So they pretty much have a pizza the size a little bigger than a bar pie, about the size of a medium pie. Cheese. It was really good. I mean, it wasn't like. I mean, it was a kosher handmade hand tossed pizza. So I thought it was good. That's pretty much what it is. I mean, it was an okay slice of pizza.
Okay.
It
So
wasn't
you
horrible.
had to buy, or you had way more than 7 then, sounds like.
Yeah, so what I had to do was I actually had to actually purchase from a pizzeria too, because they only provided 3 pies, which is great because it's 3 less pies than I had to purchase, and that saved me about $60. So yeah, if you guys can donate to us, awesome sauce. I'm gonna pull out my laptop and try to set up and start doing my podcast again from my laptop and see if I can get posted on YouTube again, because I used to do that through Streaker, and maybe I'll be able to post my podcast on YouTube. It's only going to be audio because that's what the old podcast was, only audio. If I can do that, that's awesome. I'm also on Spotify as the second is for everyone, or 2A4E podcast. And I really want to step it up going into this election cycle and also make fun of Kamala Harris's pandering, only because she's pretending to be black, and it's funny to me because it's like every black stereotype and it's just badly done. I don't know who her advisors are, but wow.
I mean, without getting too political, but what the hell, we're allowed to be political if we want, right? I saw something that said, and I don't know if it's true or not, because obviously it's just something I'm not looking for this. This is what's coming to me on X, and I do try to filter who I follow on X, but there's a couple of people, where like, let's say if there's somebody I hate and I don't block them or something, but I don't follow them, so I never hear from them. But then you reply, or what's that called, retweet or whatever it is, then I'll see that sometimes in my feed. So I'll see stuff that I'm not looking for, but for the most part, I have it. I'm not following anybody who's angry, or who I call it the fear core. Like their thing is just to be scared of everything all the time, or like to listen to the news and tell them that listen to be what to be afraid of. So don't listen too much to that. Yeah, exactly. Sky swallowing. So anyhow, I did see something. Dang, what was the point I was going to make about her? That no, I totally lost
collard greens. The collard green thing. You said the collard green thing.
No, I mean, I saw you posting that one. No, I can't remember. I was gonna, lost it. I was gonna say, I was like, oh, I'm not gonna be political, and then I started clarifying how not political I was gonna be until I lost wherever I was thinking about. But it wasn't that important. We're definitely gonna see a lot of. Oh, okay, this is what it was. Sorry, thanks. That made me think of it. The one thing I did see that I thought was interesting wasn't necessarily anything she said or anything, but it was a post that said she isn't planning on doing any interviews. She's gonna let her social media posts. Oh, how did it say? Something like set the tone of her campaign. And I was like, that's a kind of an odd way. But I could also see it from the, I like to put myself in the other shoes if I can, and I can't always. But if I look at it from the other way, I could totally see it be a situation where they're like, well, look, Trump's a clown. Trump's like, he's such a jerk, and he doesn't have any, he's not, he's whatever. They think he's reckless, or they think he's too impetuous, or whatever the words are that they would use. So we're not going to, go down to his level and even be in a debate with them. So therefore, we don't even need to regard, if we had if we had somebody who is competent, to debate against, we would, but we don't have to debate against this guy because he's such a jerk and he's a felon or whatever, right? They're going to say whatever.
Yeah.
And then, so I could see her base, or at least a base who's willing to accept whatever they're given on face value, say to themselves, oh, okay, I see why she made this decision, and that's classy. And now I back her even more because she refuses to go do any kind of debate. But that's scary as shit, because what I've seen, and again, I don't look this stuff up, but I do follow like some liberal gun owner type of thing. Not them, but maybe I do, but you know what I mean? Like just people who are liberals who we've come across and who do post things, and I appreciate it, because otherwise I would have to look this stuff up, and I don't like doing that. So I've seen some stuff that is, positive. It's her campaign stuff, and it's not somebody making fun of it. It's just somebody who's actually maybe got a point or a critique, or like, hey, don't think of, don't forget about how many people listen to this part of it. And, if you're a little girl wanting to be president, that's a hard thing to campaign against, because, and if you just ignore that, it's at our peril, because that's an issue. And anybody who has a little girl or knows a little girl, you definitely don't want her to be, concerned that she can't be a president or something. That's the kind of stuff, but those are the realms of messaging that I don't even know if gun people are paying attention to. But I know there's, without getting into all the controversial topics, there's a couple of topics that we hardly ever talk about, or we usually discourage people from mixing with guns: religion or abortion or immigration, like economy, who cares? But, sometimes economy, but those other things are really tender subtopics for people who disagree. So we tend to say, leave it out of the gun debate so that you don't alienate, half the gun people, bringing up one side of those debates or not. But there are people that those are their number one issues. And if we don't even pay attention at all, then we're just not paying attention to, they're never going to give a shit about guns if all they care about is immigration, right? Like, that's their number one issue, and guns is a side issue, just like for us, vice versa, right?
Exactly.
So
my whole issue with her is people are attacking stupid things, and I think it's a mistake. Who she slept with or her sexual history, I'm like, really, you need to stop, because it's all hypocritical anyway. Leave it alone, because the Republican dude paid a porn star to have sex with him. I mean, you really don't have a solid standing to poke fun at her because she slept her way to the top or whatever. It's like, your dude, whatever. So leave that alone. Let's just talk about her policies. And then she keeps bringing up, or her side keeps bringing up, the fact that she's a black woman. And I'm like, could we stop that too? Because one, your race is pretty much one of the least important things in a campaign, especially when it's not a race you claimed ever until you got on the national scene and ran for president the second time. Because the first time she was Indian, and that's all she said. And that's what she claimed. And now all of a sudden, somehow she's black because her dad's from Jamaica, as if Jamaican is black. Jamaica is a country, it's not a race. And when you show you pictures of her dad, he's Indian. So is her mom. He was born and raised in the Bahamas and moved to Jamaica. She was raised in Canada. Just stop. It's like, I don't even know why you'd go down the rabbit hole. Let's just talk about her policies and her failings there. That's the way I look at it. Let's just talk about the job she did.
That suggested that they're even bringing it up because it's one of those, it's like putting out flares. If you're like, we always watch the dog fights out here, they put out flares to track missiles. It's like they know that somebody's going to bark about it. Oh, I've been waiting for this argument, blah, 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 on both sides, right? Like, I'm going to defend the fact that she can do whatever she wants. Like, I'm going to defend I'm going to persecute her for flopping sides or whatever. So it's almost a distraction. Like, let's just pull these people out of the race right now and let them spin off into this conversation. And then next, I don't know. I don't know if they'll even play with economy, but the border thing. I thought that was very, very similar. Borders are like, I do Yankee show every once in a while. He brings me and Matt in and we chat, and that's always interesting because the Yankees. I mean, I agree with some things, Yankees, like 100%. And then other things, like, I can't even imagine how he can be on that position or whatever. So having to be able to, or being able to chat with him can clarify that a lot. So his thing was, the borders are thing. Like, I didn't even know that was a thing because I remember, because I hate the word czar. I'm like, this is fucking America. As soon as they came up with jug czar, I hated the czars. So whenever they bring up a new czar, I'm like, fuck you. That's such a dumbass thing to bring up. That's definitely trying to push us towards communism, in my opinion. So, I mean, blatantly. So whenever they brought that up however many years ago, I remember it. And then Yankee was like adamantly, like out of nowhere in his chat, he was like, I can't believe anybody brings this up. Don't bring it up. It's not a thing. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it was a thing. Well, it turns out it's splitting hairs. Like, he made her the boss of that department and somebody else was the drug czar. And I'm like, seriously, dude, then that's just being like splitting hairs, I guess, is what's the opposite of that? Like, that's just being so specific and then not telling anybody else you're being specific. But like, you can't say that she was the drug czar. Well, you know what? The news kind of suggested she was. So definitely that news cycle happened. And now what they're trying to do is say she was never technically the drug czar, but she might have been in charge of the border, but she was never technically. And that's, again, just designed to get all these people who are like, no, I remember her being the drug czar, to get in this bicker battle. And
well, my whole thing is okay. So my position on that is, why did they announce it in March of 2021? If she, oh well, it's just a type. Then it meant nothing. Did it mean something or did it mean nothing? And if it meant nothing, why are you blowing smoke up people's butts?
that's the best
Then they could have
response
said,
I heard. Like, if she's the drug czar and she did such a good job, then why not be like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm the drug czar.
yeah, if she was the border czar and there was no border, yeah, if she was the border czar and there was no border problem, she'd be going around talking about how she solved that. But now, since New York City, Chicago, all the large cities are talking about the illegal population they have to deal with, the problems that result from it. Well, that means she didn't do a good job as the border czar. It's like getting a job and you're so bad at it, you left it completely off your resume. That's pretty much her thing with the border czar. Her time as the border czar was she sucked. We have a problem on the border, and there they go, well, that's not really a real position. Then why did you make it one? Why do we continually have news reports from 2021 talking about how they made her the border czar?
Well, I've even seen paperwork, but we're getting
No, we have the White House announcement. Well, my thing is we have the White House announcements. It's not like there's a lot of work for the vice president to do. So let's
that's
look
pretty
at
much what they do. Is they do projects like that. I mean, that's what they do, right? Like, go clean up the relationship with Honduras or something, or like go figure out how to make the ambassador to some other country happy about something. Like, they just do little tasks.
We have records. This is one of the craziest things. We have records on what Trump did his 4 years as president. We have records of what this lady has done in over 3 years as vice president. Let's just compare the things you were supposed to do and what you achieved. But we don't want to talk about that. So let's talk about who she slept with, what race she is. Silly stuff. Let's talk about her policies. They don't want to talk about that.
It would actually be beneficial to her side to just throw some of those things out there to get people spun off, so that they don't talk about the bigger or the other issues.
Okay, how about this? Why did no one, and this is Democrats only, vote for her during the friggin' Democratic primaries when she ran for president? That she was one of the first ones to drop out because she got zero support. Nothing's changed with this lady except she was vice president, and we can't talk about the one thing they put her in charge of, the border.
Lots of PSA videos coming out recently. Seems they're no longer the affordable darlings they once were. Typical gun drama or something else.
That's is this
question?
What, levers?
No. Sorry. So PSA, I'm thinking Palmetto State. Lots of Palmetto State videos coming out. It seems they're no longer the affordable that they used to be. Is this gun drama or something else? And that's an interesting question because I have no idea. I tune out when people talk about this stuff.
All right. So my thing with PSA is this. When they were making AR-15s and only AR-15s, they were making them at two different levels. They were making the Freedom version, and they were making, I forgot what the other one was. But they were just making two versions of AR-15s. One of them used the barrels that they got from FN, and the other used a different type of barrel. And my personal AR-15, well, a couple of them, I had a dissipator that I purchased. I bought the upper complete, and I purchased the lower and put it together. And excuse me, no, I didn't get the upper complete. I got the upper without a charging handle, without a bulk carrier group for like $200 from a dissipator. No one can really F up an upper. You put it together. If the sights are aligned, it's good to go. So that's what I got. I bought a higher end bulk carrier group and charging handle. I got the BCA charging handle, the gas buster medium or whatever you call that. And I put the lower together with a ACT ALG trigger or ALG ACT trigger. Happy with it. Guns ran for years. But what they started doing was making different levels. They came out with their Saber level, which is supposed to be the higher end level. They started making AKs, which suck supposedly. They started making the 5.7. They came out with a dagger in two different sizes, and those had teething problems. They also came out with the Jackal, which, if you watch Brass Facts, the Picatinny rail was at the wrong dimensions and wouldn't hold some of his stuff. And he found out that that was done incorrectly. And then, instead of solving the problem, they attacked him and then dropped him as a whatever, sponsored whatever. And it's just a bad look. And more people are coming out, you know, pointing out that the PSA Emperor has no clothes. And I also have a bad taste in my mouth for PSA because they stopped selling unassembled lowers here. So I can't buy a lower from PSA in Jersey anymore. They won't send them. But on the other side of their collective corporate face, they talk about how they want to get guns in the hand of the regular citizens. But if I'm trying to do a build and you have PSA lowers for $39, I can't get one. I have to either buy, I don't even think they just send the lower here anymore. I think you have to buy the whole rifle. And I'm like, why is that when I can get an Aero Precision sent here? I can get it from any other company. Actually, Grey Ghost Precision also won't send it unless you get on the phone and actually talk to a girl. So I think people are finally over that hump with PSA being this just darling, and they're calling them out on some of their foibles. And PSA is not handling it well, and PSA fanboys aren't handling it well.
That's interesting. I appreciate the elevator kind of version of the situation. And then my question, if you know, is has PSA been consistent with their employees, or like sometimes companies get rid of people, or things, whatever, turnover and stuff, like, is that been an issue of it, or is it continued same people all the way through this whole thing?
I don't know how their employee situation is, but this is what I've heard. They've grown so fast that their Q and A, their quality control, QC, has fallen by the wayside a bit because they have so many different things going on. Remember, at one time, all they did was ARs. So your quality control could be there, but now you have a whole line of Gen 3 Glock clones, full size and compact, and you got AKs. And also you have, I think they were doing a 1911, and you also have the Jackal. That's a lot of different things you have to QC, and something's going to fall by as you grow into that. And I think that's what's happening. The dagger's affordable, but when you start putting out the numbers of daggers they have, and then you have people that have problems, and you have social media, it looks like it's a lot more problems than there is, or maybe there's a bunch of problems. I don't know. The dagger's affordable, but for the price of a dagger, I could pick up a police trade-in Glock, and I'd rather have a police trade-in Glock. Yep, I agree.
So Plato's essentially saying the same thing. We've got quite a few lowers to complete as well. No issues. However, don't have any of their other stuff. Seems like once they expanded, the QV went down.
Yeah, I think I had about 10 PSA lowers. And then, because I got them a while ago, and then they changed some bullcrap policy. And I think it's because the jerk that we had before as the Attorney General started suing manufacturers, which the lawsuit goes nowhere. I mean, I passed the same background check to get the lower as I do to get the whole effing rifle. So I have no idea what difference it make in court. But I think maybe PSA and some manufacturers changed up after he started suing them. So all of a sudden I can't get a lower.
Well, when you get a state that does something, or it even threatens to do that, or maybe puts a list up or something, or put some hurdle, like whatever they do to mess with the flow, then manufacturers are either going to react by saying, like, oh, let's roll up our sleeves and figure out how to get stuff there. Like, let's make sure we get stuff there because it's important. Every once in a while, that's what they say. I'd say that's a minority. But then you get the ones that are like, it's too much work. And then you get the ones that are, and there's probably more than this, but then you also get the ones that are like, because they said that, F that state. and that's
Yep.
frustrating for the people that live there. It sounds great for the other, especially when they look at their numbers and all their sales are like in Montana and North Dakota, and then they can say fuck New Jersey, and nobody cares because nobody from New Jersey ever bought anything anyway. They're ensuring that no one ever will, but you know what I mean. I'm sure on their bottom line, what do they care? So, but it's also as rare as the people that roll up their sleeves and make sure that the states get their stuff. I'd say it's a majority of the manufacturers are just like, oh, that's annoying. We're not going to do anything extra. But often when they're prompted, or like you say, if you make a call and ask, they'll be like, okay, we don't have a policy against it. We just don't do it. We don't get a lot of demand, so we never, push it.
And that's what I had happen. So two different things. So one of my guys, because again, I work for volunteers. My guys buy guns all the time, right? And they were like, yeah, PSA won't send a disassembled lower. They just won't. It makes no difference what you do. So when I was working with, what's his name? Grey Ghost Precision. Grey Ghost Precision had the same thing. They're not sending any, because they would sell an upper and lower set. And during the Christmas holidays, they had awesome sales. You should check them out. If you want to buy this, what do you call it? Disassembled upper lower set.
Strip lower.
Yeah, stripped. That's it. I couldn't use the word. Stripped upper and lower receiver set. Usually it's like $500, $600, and they slash it in like half. And these things are so tight that pretty much you actually have to tug them apart. Like that's the tolerances on those things. And that's without a pen in it. That's totally stripped. They were like, yeah, we don't send anything to Jersey. Well, one of the guys I used to work with on the Gun and Gear Review podcast worked there. And he was like, nah, watch this. And he just called up the shipping and was like, yo, these guys are in Jersey. They're putting a gun together. Just send it. And they did. So you'd have to call and talk to the shipping people when they send it. It was just something they put out there. So you make a phone call, you might be able to get it. PSA, not sending it. And then when I listen to them talk about we just want to get the guns in the hands of people, I'm like, well, it seems to me it doesn't take much to get you to cower away from New Jersey. It's like buy a whole gun from us and just don't bother calling. Well, I can't get a PSA pistol, right? I can't get a PSA AR pistol, but I can build something they call a non-NFA other in Jersey, which means it has to be an overall length of 26 inches and pretty much an AR pistol that's 26 inches long total with a vertical grip. That's 100% legal in Jersey. It falls in the crack. Well, we can't have a pistol, so I can't buy the pistol. I can't turn a rifle into a pistol. If I get the lower, I can build this thing into one for some bizarre reason. Oh, we're not sending them. All right, fine. Then I guess I use every other manufacturer out there. You know what I mean? I guess I'll have to somehow figure it out with the other 275 AR manufacturers there. Way to kill a customer base.
Well, definitely over the years, I mean, I've been aware of PSA, and there are fanboys like that will not shut up about them, and then there's people that hate them, and then there's got to be a bunch of people in the middle that don't say nothing, I guess. But the fanboys usually turn me off of anything, even Glock. Like, I prefer Glocks because they work and lots of reasons, but the fanboy part of it is frustrating, like, because nothing is worth all that, and the people that'll won't take any other answer. But anyway, so the PSA thing, and then just watching them over the years it shot, so getting that glimpse of them. I pay attention to patches, so they're one of the ones on my radar every year just because of their patches and stuff. And I don't know, I think it's neat because I'm not, like I say, I'm not really against or pro the company. I got nothing against them, but I also don't love them. But I do think it's neat that they're ambitious enough, I guess is the word, to continue to do like pistols, pistols, ammo, AKs, ARs, in addition to just, it would have been a lot easier, a lot simpler to just stick with one and do it. I don't know if that's a great idea, great choice of theirs, but it was, at least it's very Ruger-like, and, Smith & Wesson-like, as opposed to, one of the companies that's just a one-trick pony.
Well, yeah, they went from being a one-trick pony, but they blew up and they purchased other companies. So they own H&R, Harrison and Richardson. So they're making throwback ARs now. I don't know what the QC is on those. I have a lot of PSA bills. I didn't have a problem with them, but I haven't messed with them in years because they won't send stuff here. So I made my bills out of Arrow Precision stuff. It's their fault. They stopped shipping to Jersey. I didn't quit them. They quit me.
Well, I don't have too many people. I don't know really anybody that has a problem with Arrow, so I'm guessing you're okay with those.
Yeah, I mean, they're sending to the state. I met the owner. I met the president of Arrow Precision and the president of Stag Arms at SHOT Show at the Circle Bar. And we actually hung out, had a conversation. I took pictures with those guys and everything. I don't have an issue with them. And the fact that they were actually fighting, actively fighting, gave their guys time off and went down as a company and testified in front of their legislative body, I thought was pretty cool for a company that makes their money off of selling ARs. Makes you wonder why other companies don't. Just saying. They act as if somehow they'll lose something. And I'm like, what are you going to lose? What are you going to lose? Except, I don't know, people like me that go, wow, you actually stood up for a right, not just try to profit off of it.
Yeah, big difference between doing all that and then having the, like, we're going to engrave this on the side of a limited run that you can pay extra for right now.
Yep. Okay. Man.
Well, thanks, Plato, for bringing up
stuff.
Go ahead.
Some people do stuff. Some companies do stuff that's actually supportive, and others make noises and seem a certain way. Oh, we'll put something on the side of it for a limited run and donate $5 to somebody else. Because I have two of the Virginia Citizen Defense League. I have two of those lowers from PSA. I bought them because they were supporting, that Second Amendment organization in VA. But then they don't ship to New Jersey? What the frick, bro? Like, what? How? What? So that bothered me. But hey, to each his own. If their QC is cool, buy from them. I haven't bought Anderson's. That was one of the ones I hadn't purchased. My partner and I used to talk about that, about the quality of these. And sometimes they say the holes on Anderson's were off. I don't know, because I was getting them from PSA at the time and they were perfect for the bills that I was putting together. Because I would throw an AR together, 20 minutes? Especially if you're using something with a trigger pack, it's just bing, 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 bing. And I got a lower together and I put it with an upper. And I had no problem with the uppers. Matter of fact, my home defense rifle that I have right here is a PSA upper on an Arrow Precision lower. Yep, 9mm PSA upper on an Arrow Precision lower with a Glock mag in it.
Well, I forgot about that era of PSA, but for a long time there, I'm going to say 15, maybe 16, that time frame, they were all about, like having really inexpensive or bargain, competitively priced. What would I say? I don't want to say like cheap, like crappy quality, but competitively priced upper packages, like this side. It wasn't so much pistols back then, I don't think. I remember it just being a lot more different kind of rifles and stuff. But yeah, I remember that being the thing that, you'd get your lower and you'd go to PSA and start looking at what AR you're going to put together.
$200 to $350 AR uppers, some with bolt carrier groups and charging handles and some not. So like it would be the M16 AA2, because again, we're talking years ago, and it would run about $300 or $299 with no charging handle, no BCG. And then the premium will be like $599, but they knock it down to $399, that kind of thing. And then I started hearing they may or may not have been issues with the bolt carrier groups, or they just had the phosphate coated ones. But then I was able to go to AIM Surplus, and they just had like better coatings on some of theirs that were high round count. So I bought like a really nice one for like $125. That is usually like $399. And I just put my gun together that way. So I felt that I had a very good upper from PSA and a very good bolt carrier group from AIM Surplus. And then I picked up the BCM charging handle because I knew it would stand up to a lot of use. And I think that was in 2012. So I got 12 years, and this thing has changed lowers like 3 times, and I've not had any problems with it. And if I've had a hang up at all, it'll probably due to ammo. Like I can't even think about it. Like when I actually had a problem with it, I've ran through classes with it. I've taught classes with it. It's been at diversity shoots and didn't get clean for like a long time. And then one day I just decided to clean all of my ARs at once, but I'd never really had a problem with any of them. Again, PSA bills. But people are telling me they changed. So one of the things I'm trying to do now is get involved and pick up another rifle and run it, a modern rifle that's made in 2024. And I'm going to talk to different companies and see who sends me something. I think middle of the road is better than going cheap. Because my first thought was trying to hit Anderson up. But it's like everybody's not stepping into this with the cheapest rifle they can find. I don't think a lot of people have a problem paying between $850 and $1,000 for an AR. I think that's kind of middle of the road right now. Do you think that's about the price?
Oh, me? I have no idea. Like I said, I don't really pay attention to that stuff anymore. But I was thinking, I didn't want to interrupt you before, but now I'm going to interrupt you because it's you're hitting it. Or something I was going to say before. Whenever we were talking about those, or when I was thinking of those AR uppers being the big thing from PSA, because the lowers were always like I always hang out with people who are selling gear to high-end units and people in high-end units. So they were selling high-end gear and they just never even paid attention to the knockoff stuff. So I just had no experience with knockoff stuff. It was all just listening to people online. And, those lowers or those uppers, were because you could buy lowers for like $25. Nobody was really into 80% back then, but you could potentially get 80% if you were really getting a lot of guns. But the thing was, back in the 2013 era, it was 2013, 14, 15, really. It was the assault weapons ban ended and everybody couldn't care less. Like everybody just sat around. But then the global war on terror happened and Black Hawk Down and shit like this. And we're like, oh, I can make an AR like that. Oh, it's super fucking easy and cheap. And then it's like, well, now I want one like that. Oh, it's super easy and cheap. Oh, I want one like that. It's super easy and cheap. By the time 2015 comes around, Obama says, we're taking all your AR-15s. And there's a bunch of people with like 3 or 4 and a whole bunch of people that didn't have any. And they were like, oh my God, this guy's falling. We have to go buy as many AR-15s as we can. So they bought like 10. Right, people like nowadays, everybody got scared of COVID and everybody bought one gun. They bought a handgun. Maybe they bought an AR-15 or a shotgun, but they bought a handgun because that's what they were told to do, or that's what's the cool thing to do. Because we have so many trainers, instructors. It's like, oh, you need to get yourself a CCW gun. Well, in 2013, there wasn't 50 states of CCW yet. There wasn't no constitutional carry in 29 states. So everybody went out and bought AR-15s. Because Obama was going to take them, and then they figured out, I could buy like 5 AR-15s, have one for the whole family, whatever. So people come out of that with 10. Now you got 10 AR-15s, and you bought them for whatever, $300 a piece or something. So they're all kind of bland. Well, like, oh, I could buy this and make that one different. Oh, I can make this one long range. Oh, this one's my little carry one. No, this one's 9mm now. Oh, whatever. So that was a whole different mindset. People had, I don't know how many people, I don't even know how many people I know that have 20 ARs. I mean, I'm seriously, because there's so many people I know that have over 20 ARs, I'd have to sit here and start thinking about it. So the people that are today have bought a gun for a handgun, and now they might be buying one AR. So it's just a different world. Like people are buying guns for different reasons, and there wasn't a whole myriad of handguns to carry, and not everybody could carry. So people were buying ARs because they thought they could never get one again. And then as soon as they could, as soon as that right was secured again, essentially, there was a kind of a rise of the AR-15 boutique. Like in 2018, I remember 2017 for sure, driving around looking at gun shops across the country. There were literally shops in like Austin and Dallas, where they only sold AR-15s, and they're out of business now because they started up. They brought in a bunch of rails and triggers and grips, and it's one of the reasons that all those options drive me nuts, because while they're fun for the new shooter, they gut the industry. They become like the coolest thing. Everybody feeds on them, and then what happens? You got a skeleton left over, and unless you got a bunch of people that are like being prepared about that, you just end up with a bunch of skeletons. So I don't really care, because we've gone through multiple versions of that. But that was one of the first things I saw, like stark realities of like, wow, look at all these shops that are just AR-15s. And somewhere along there, we're having a lot of live conversations. Somewhere in there, somebody said, probably like, these shops aren't going to be around forever. And that probably was when I was like, oh, wait a minute, that's a good point. And of course, now they're probably nail salons or something, because they were more of a trendy thing, an opportunity type of shop. And anyway, so that's where I'm getting at. It's like back in the day, it was
I watched
20 ARs, and because they were so cheap. And today, if an AR costs $1,000, you're not going to have 20 of them. Back in the day, ARs cost you like half the price of a pistol. It was crazy.
Well, yeah, it depends on what's back in the day, but yeah, you can build an AR, $500. You could either buy a new Glock or build an AR from the ground up. And it was funny because doing what I do, being into the gun thing, I watched shops appear and disappear in Jersey. I still remember one. He popped up and he was going to sell all this stuff and all this gear, and they were gone within 6 months because they had no idea what they were doing. And you can't just get into a niche and think that that's what you're going to rock, because he was right outside of the what's the base? Fort Dix. He was right outside of Fort Dix, New Jersey. It's a nail salon. It's a nail salon now. And I don't even know if they lasted 6 months. The cool part about that kind of crap is that someone like me will just slide back a couple years later and go through the bins of whatever's left of that place and pick up some key mod and be happy with it. Good job, Keith. I'll take this key mod handguard that you used to sell for $300 for $30. Thanks.
Yeah, they're more than likely either had a closing out sale or just sold their inventory to some other store that's still around. Yeah.
They sold their inventory to some other store that has a big old freaking cardboard box with all those little parts in it that they were acting like were boutique. Hey, look, Ford Control Designs magazine release, $3. I'll take it. I'll take it. They sold this stuff by the pound.
But again, like the difference was the mentality of like, oh, I'm going to make my 7th AR this weekend, or I'm going to bring my friend over and we're going to make his 3rd AR and my 10th AR. And this time we're making them into such and such builds. But yeah, nobody has that mentality. Well, I see very few people with that mentality anymore. Maybe I just don't hang around with those types, but there's no survivalist really thirst anymore. And then there's no, I suppose it was a factor of having so many cheap accessories. And I think it was another factor of when you look at it in the big scheme of things, people were able to get the machines to be able to make an AR rail or a grip, or at least, come up with a grip idea and have it made for them. It was easier and easier to be entrepreneurial, where in the 90s, it was still kind of like only the big companies ever built anything. Nobody decided I'm going to build something in my garage and add it to the mix.
Yep. I mean, and then all of a sudden, everybody had an AR. One of the AR had an AR. And next thing you know, hey, why don't we put some AR furniture on different guns? And now all of a sudden you have the tactical lever action again, which was already out there with Mossberg, but they came too early and then just disappeared because their tactical lever action was ugly as sin. Most people don't even remember it. I do. Because
but it also wasn't really AR-ish, like you're saying. Now they said, hey, wait a minute.
No, it had quad rail. It had quad rails on the front of it, and it was just front heavy, and it was somehow uglier than a Scar with the UGG boot. And from what I heard, because a friend of mine was actually working in Pennsylvania, the Amish loved them because, again, you could adjust the stock. And yeah, you could adjust the stock, so that allowed multiple people to have it. And it was in 30-30, and I think 22 long rifle with only 2 calibers. if I remember correctly. But now you have the furniture from Midwest Industries and Ranger Precision. They make the stuff that you can put on your lever action outside of a rail, because again, I have a personal problem shooting using buckhorn sights. That's a me problem. That's the only thing I'd really look at, and maybe some way to actually sling a sling modern, in a modern way. If I was going to take my lever action to do anything with, but my lever action is pretty much bought for the purpose of introducing people to firearms. Most of my gun collection is that.
We're at the 2.5 hour ish mark. So I'm thinking, well, first, Ozzy had said earlier, he's got his Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 2.0. I'm guessing that's a semi-auto.
Yeah, they just put it out in 380. They updated the design.
So he's got that coming. I'm assuming he's going to make a holster for it. We'll pay attention for that. But then Woods had asked a question earlier. Last question: are we stuck with the stupid 9mm, or is there ever going to be around to supplement it? I really think we will, because I think that, again, generations like their own thing, and people like capacity. So it wasn't 30 super carry, maybe, although it might be. But yeah, I just think that it's just like 45 ACP. Everybody said, why would we need to change that? Okay, 38 special. Why would we need to change that? Okay, 357. Why would we need to? What I mean? Like, nothing lasts forever. But I'm also optimistic. But what do you think?
I think nothing lasts forever, but stuff lasts a long damn time. Understand that your 9mm Parabellum came out in 1908 and is still there. And it'll probably be around in 2028. Well, definitely 2028, but 2108, it'll probably still be here.
And not just still here, but like dominating like the number one caliber. I mean, I understand it is big up, but
because
it's just frustrating
you
that
have,
it is.
You have international military, that have it, and then you have police forces that have it. So you have a commonality there that something will have to step up to be just as good, but offer another advantage in some way. And nothing really has been able to step up and do that. The ballistics and wound characteristics, for hollow point ammo, expanding ammo is there. So unless something is better, gives you higher capacity, lighter weight, cheaper, and the same ballistics are better, unless something nails all of that, there's no reason to replace the 9mm as the world's handgun round.
And I think if I want to try to be optimistic and come up with a way to get rid of 9mm semi-realistically, not just blink my eyes and it's gone. If you look at the rifle side, so you have essentially, let's just say 5.56 for most of our lifetimes, but you can rewind just a little bit and you have your World War II calibers. I won't go through all of them, but when you have those World War II calibers, you get done with the war and you've got all these rifles and you've got all these people that want to go hunting, and you've got, the spread of, what was that called? Suburban growth or whatever, sprawl. So you had a bunch of good times after the war, and everybody was hunting, and the hunting calibers all started. So those hunting calibers started, and you look at I've looked at the history of some of them, and most of them were somebody in their garage or somebody at a gun shop, but experimenting intentionally to make a better round for maybe antelope or grizzly bear or whatever it was. Like, they needed their special characteristic for it. And that's where we got this like kind of a big boom or explosion of calibers that happened after World War II. Because up until World War II, we hardly had bullets, let alone options for calibers. We had what the military made, and maybe a couple of others if you count like 22. But after the war, like boom, we had all these other calibers. And then, but that was even a war caliber. I mean, because they issued Winchesters, didn't they? So I'm just saying, like, the development of bullets has always been like homegrown, and then works its way up. Every once in a while you get companies back in the day making calibers, but for the most part it was a wildcatter who made a caliber, and it was almost always in rifles, except for like the 44 and 357 and stuff. So I guess what I'm getting at is that we had for a while here just a good set of calibers that everybody was satisfied with. So it'll take either everybody getting just like antsy, like I just want to do something different just to do something different. Because like you say, I think they pretty much figured out mathematically that everything's pretty decent the way it is. But I think what could mess with us is, and I'm super looking forward to this because I don't think we're also stuck with lead. Lead has been useful, but I think there's hopefully glass bullets coming or some kind of ceramic bullets, something that we can make out of sand that's infinitely replenishable. So once we get into space, we don't have to be dependent on lead, and make our barrels that somehow are sacrificial to a bullet that won't, that'll destroy a barrel instead of being so worried about our barrels. But anyway, I think that if we have some kind of advance in change in how we shoot, like the projectile we shoot or how we shoot it, because we could always do some kind of an electronic or magnetic propulsion that comes up. Somebody figures out a better way to make a drill, and then that turns into a way that we could throw a piece of metal. What if we figure out how to throw a piece of magnetic metal faster than or with a magnet with a battery rather than with chemical?
You mean like rail guns?
Yeah.
You mean like rail guns? Yeah.
It's essentially sci-fi right now, but all that stuff seems like sci-fi until somebody gets a breakthrough, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, why didn't we think of that? So I think what'll happen though is if they do come up with a rail gun, it'll be in freaking 9mm because it's so popular right now. They won't make a rail gun in 357 because there's no point, but they could make it in 9mm and like, oh, you got to just put this slide on top of your 9mm guns, and now you've got your 9mm rail gun. Put a battery in there instead of a magazine. You know what I mean? So they'll retrofit the existing 9mm, which is sort of frustrating. If the theory or my suggestion actually happens, where we figure out some advance and then just say, hey, instead of having to make new guns, let's just add this upper.
Who knows what the future will hold? I mean, obviously things change, technology changes, but right now I don't see it. But that could be around the corner. That could be tomorrow. Something happens and changes it all. Like when you went from black powder to smokeless, all of a sudden that changed everything within a decade.
Yeah, I don't think anybody had to see that coming for it to come and happen, right?
It happened just like coming up with a self-contained ammo cartridges. Like all of that happened around the same 20-year period. If you rolled into the Civil War with your latest, Henry? It was a rimfire, lead bullet, kind of pathetic with the 44 Henry rimfire, but that was cutting edge going into the Civil War. 20 years later, which sounds like a long time unless you're over 40, and then you realize it ain't that long. You were smoked by the 1880s if you still had a Henry rimfire shooting 44 Henry rimfire.
Yeah, because shooting something faster than stuff in the barrel of a breech loader is, an AK-47, but an AK-47 in 22 is nothing compared to a lever action in 4570 or something.
Yeah, it just was a step up in a very short amount of time in everything involved. The Henry lever action was first gen. I mean, it was pretty much watching a step up from a Tommy gun to the HK MP5. You're talking first generation and third generation submachine guns. That happened in one dude's lifetime. That happened from 1928 to 1965.
That's why Biden is so scared of guns, because when he was a baby, there was only flintlocks.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
All right, so Woods is saying humans are all about projectiles from the javelin till now. Who brought that up? Somebody, I remember that being a point from somebody. I'm going to say Professor Yamane, but
I don't know. He's mad at me right now.
Oh, really?
Well, he's not mad at me, but he pointed out that I was stepping outside of the Second Amendment realm when I was pointing out the racist pandering that Kamala did when I made my post the other day with her talking about making collard greens. He was like, hey, what's this got to do with the Second Amendment? Why don't you stick to Second Amendment stuff? And I've gone through some things, and I think I have a response for him now that's not disrespectful. But I was, because I had to compose in my mind how to answer him in print without sounding like I was being nasty, because I'm not.
Right.
I appreciate him calling me out on straying away from the Second Amendment message. But at the same time, it's my fucking page. You know what I mean? And I totally get what he's saying because he's right. And I need people like him to call me out when I stray too far away. But still, at the same time, I can point out what I want to point out. And when I point out racist pandering, to me, with her, it goes hand in hand with the gun control message that I say it's racist too. I'm like, understand these people when they're pushing a racist agenda, which I feel gun control will affect minorities and poor people more than will affect the rich white people or rich people in general. When I point out, it's not just one thing that they have a policy on, it's lots of policies. So when they're pandering and using racism in the lowest common denominator for this, it ain't such a long leap to go, well, racist gun control, racist pandering, same people, same party, same thought process. That's the line I draw. Now, if you don't want to see it or you go, oh, that's tenuous at best, well, that's my perspective. And it's my page.
I think that one of the things I wrestle with, and because I never know, these are adults, so I tend to think, oh, you have the same similar life experience as me. You're old as me, maybe older. I don't know how old he is, younger than us or older than us. But I don't feel like I'm that old. So when I see old people, sometimes I'm like, you're old. And then I'm like, oh shit, you're younger than me. But so I don't know. Yeah, I can say I'm trying to get my head around all these new adult. I bought a gun for the first time as an adult. It's my decision. And I bought one gun. Like, I'm all for it. Obviously, just a different, I grew up with people that had guns their whole lives, and we just got our guns when we were little kids, and we've had tons of them. So, it's just different. It's like somebody who just bought a car for the first time as an adult versus somebody who's been driving go-karts their whole life or something. So the other thing is when they've come into the realm, like when they come into the political awareness or the tent, or I don't know what the words to use, but so he's been around for, I'm going to say a couple of years, right? But he hasn't, except for studying, I think he'll acknowledge, I'm not putting him into a corner or saying stuff for him. He wasn't paying attention through the 90s when we got abused in a whole different way as gun owners, and we got taken advantage of in all kinds of ways. And the people that disregard what the NRA was able to do in the 90s didn't live through the 90s. And if they did, they weren't paying attention. But we were seriously at a kind of risk that we never can acknowledge now because we have the internet. We didn't have the internet back then, and we had other people pulling strings. So all we could do is hear about what strings were pulled and how we were going to live with that, because we didn't have there was no like, oh, I'm going to watch this live and then watch the replay 5 minutes later. That wasn't a thing. Anyhow, so he didn't live through the manipulations that the political parties did to gun owners specifically. Now, he must know the games they played, and we don't know how much he was paying attention to politics or whatever. But anyway, he can't know your wounds, I guess is what I'm saying. And when I saw that post that you made, I'm thinking about 6 different ways. Obviously, I don't know your whole life story or nothing in all different ways. We're different. But I can assume that you don't fucking like getting yanked around. I don't like getting yanked around either. And if you're shining a light on the fact that these people are willing to do anything to fuck off and get their opinion out there, to pander or to manipulate or whatever the words you want to use, I see that that's adjacent to guns. I know that it isn't guns, but it's showing the caliber of the people we're dealing with. That's how I saw it. Not so much like you gave a shit about what she was saying, but how and who she was saying that shit to.
Exactly. And I was trying to figure, because I understand that diversity, when you open up the firearms community to other people, you open up to their perceptions too, because their perceptions is where they come from, what they saw, what they've learned. So when I'm talking about being a black dude coming up watching the pandering to our people, and I very rarely do the our people thing because I'm talking about human beings and most of us fall into that. But when it comes to politicians talking to black people in America, it seems they go for the lowest, silliest stereotypes that would be a Saturday Night Live sketch. Like it's as if And this is both parties. None of these people ever met black people. They only hear stand-up routines about black people and try to cater to that straw man black person. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Well,
it's
they
like they
like
don't
fried
even
chicken.
watch movies or nothing. Like they literally are so
Yeah,
out of.
yeah. It's like they like fried chicken, right? So I'll have a dinner with a black person that's eating fried chicken. Joe Biden. They like hot sauce, right? So Hillary Clinton says she has hot sauce in her purse. And then this lady did the whole I know how to make a mean pot of greens. I
No,
make
no,
collard greens.
bathtub of green.
Oh, well, no. She says she can make mean pot of greens. And one year they ordered so many because people would get ask her to make collard greens for Christmas. One year I had so many orders that I washed the greens in the bathtub. And I went, and that's where you messed up, lady, because there ain't no black people nowhere that would ever eat collard greens somebody washed in the bathtub.
Right? Isn't that gross? Like that sounds like you've never even cooked before. Like, ugh.
Yeah. Yeah. That lie right there told me that you've never cooked before. Like if you had so many greens they wouldn't fit into your sink, what you would do was get a foot tub, a galvanized foot tub, straight for that purpose of cleaning your collard greens. How do I know?
Yeah,
Well,
same thing.
growing up,
Same thing. You'd
growing
soak
up as
corn
a
in, like you're going to
exactly.
soak sweet corn in something. Like you have that giant bucket or whatever it's called, right?
So I'll go ahead and put it out there. Growing up, unlike her, as a black person, unlike her, in America, unlike her, you got the galvanized tub and you clean the collard greens in the large galvanized foot tub or bigger tub. So again, that just poked a button in what I grew up as, and it was almost an insult. And I have a page where I have multiple pages where I can reach thousands of people, and I put my feelings out there. Now, it's not going, don't vote for Kamala. It was pulling up her statement and then posting it with, what's his name? Not Julio Iglesias. The guy named Fluffy, the Hispanic comedian, the Mexican comedian who calls himself Fluffy. He did a racist gift basket joke slash skit where him and his friend were coming through town and they saw one of their friends was actually performing and their friend was black. So they thought it was funny to make a racist gift basket for him of stereotypical black people food. And it was hilarious because he talked about going to the grocery store and getting the people in the store involved. And it's a funny joke and is really worth listening to. If you can pull them up, it's called Racist Gift Basket if you want to Google it, or you can just go to SimonSaysTrain and watch it on my IG. And it's funny, and I edited a little bit and put it together and just posted it up. And of course, he thought it was stepping over some line that, of course, he drew, not me. And that's fine. He can have his own opinion. I'm not going to argue with him. I'm not even going to say he's wrong, that it didn't directly tie into the Second Amendment, except through my eyes, it does. And I'm not going to yell at a person or even dismiss him, but I really wanted to have an answer for him because I do feel people that are come to diversity shoots are from all over the political spectrum, and I have these conversations, and I'm not trying to get everyone to agree with me at a diversity shoot. I think some people mistake that I'm trying to recruit people directly into being gun owner, MAGA hat wearing Republicans when they come to my event. I just want them to understand that they're being lied to, where they can look up the information for real, what the real failure is with mass shootings, and the fact that gun violence epidemic is a whole made up problem that they're not really trying to solve. But I am not trying to make people switch political parties, but I am trying to get them to elevate their civil rights and understand one is being taken away from them. Actually, more than one, but this is the one that allows them to fight back against the government that tries to take everything. So that's
and you don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to take from a. I mean, it was essentially tongue in cheek or joking, like mocking or whatever. You know, it was like lighthearted. It wasn't like worried. You weren't like, we gotta, like you said, it wasn't like do this or else or
No.
anything. It was just a like an illustration, kind of humorous type of thing. I'm looking at my Instagram while I'm thinking, and I distracted myself again.
not two things can go together. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. I lost it. I was just going to say something to the effect of that when I guess I was going to say something to the effect that he's not used to the scene or whatever. And I think I've mentioned before, like I was listening to a conversation. Woods makes a point between liberal gun club and liberal gun owner. I think I know what he's saying.
Mhm.
Like somebody can be a liberal and own a gun, and that's a lot different than being all down with the liberal gun club is all about, or, you know, an organization with a bunch of direction or a bunch of agendas or anything or positions. You can just be a liberal person and own a gun. You don't have any other obligation than that, and you can have your own opinion on stuff. Like say it can be, I think, unaware of your time on the clock, so to speak, and you know, but I think you kind of said the same thing. Like if you're you're the one who decided to set this boundary on what we're allowed to talk about or whatever. I was going to say something to the effect of, I remember having that insight when I was listening to one of the liberal gun club or one of the liberal gun organizations online chats. They were saying how they walked into a gun shop and felt triggered or threatened or whatever, uncomfortable because they saw an American flag hanging on the wall, as if an American flag is some sort of an aggressive action to take. Like it's seriously, I mean, if you walk into a hardware store and see one, you're going to feel the same way. So that was, again, like, I think we're saying the same thing. Like if you're going to bring your baggage to it, if everything you hear is like a persecution, then that might be on you. That might not be, you know, because this is an election year. And what are we not going to not talk about the politics? Like we're not going to call out when crazy stuff happens. And then I guess to wrap it up with that, I was going to say, if you don't bring up weirdness or if it doesn't ever get brought up, then what? If we're supposed to be so polite and keep things isolated, then how do we move the ball, right? If we're all just going to be polite and only talk about what's in our lane, then that we can't. That's how they got us to where we are, because we all just sat around worrying about what our grip angles were, and they took away rights in Massachusetts, they took away rights in New Jersey, they took away rights in Washington, and you know, we're just sitting around worried about what grip angle we're going to buy next.
Yep. 100%. You cannot let things lie. You have to point things out. And again, I'm not trying to tell you who to vote for at all. I was pointing out the ludicrous. And it's like, well, why don't you point out stuff from Trump? Well, if you ever listen to me, I can't stand listening to Trump because the guy pretty much can have a win if he shut up. So when he talks, it just makes my head hurt. And I'm like, I don't want to watch this guy. I'm like, I just don't want to watch it. It's just annoying as hell. It's frustrating. It's frustrating looking at something that somebody might pull a loss out just because he doesn't know how to talk. That's the way I look at Trump. Biden, I just stopped looking at him because it was, some people laugh and I'm like, you know, we're being seen on the world stage, right? Yeah. This is seen as our leader. This is not just
something that happened in the world because of they got that guy to be concerned about.
They look at that weak leadership. I'm like, some of us don't get it because, I mean, read a Tom Clancy book, dude. I mean, that's how I look at it. Read a Tom Clancy book because he pretty much nails how other world leaders see the world and see the United States through our news and through how we treat our elected officials and deal with them. They think it's real. We look at it going, these guys are a joke, and in 4 years they'll be out of there. But they in those countries see it as a reflection on us, our ability to wage war and make decisions. So yeah, when I see Biden fall downstairs, I'm like, that's the president of the United States and the representative of our nation that can't walk up a flight of stairs.
The what's it called? The devil's advocate in me wants to say, I think that might be a little good for the rest of the world to realize that, like, we're so free over here that we can elect anybody, and we have, and You know what I mean? But here's the thing: even despite all that, the systems, the mechanisms that are established, they might not be perfect, but there's been no accidental nuclear wars, and aside from some blunders and some dumb shit, and obviously the global war on terror was a different thing completely. But as far as like just ultimately a violent stuff that could accidentally happen or would happen inadvertently, at least none of that's happening. The stuff that's happening is probably more intentional than anything else.
I think it's because people are good. If you find out certain things, like we almost had a nuclear launch in the 80s, but one Soviet dude was like, yeah, nah, we're not doing this until I get clarification. Like what he was supposed to get, one of the launch things he was supposed to get, he was supposed to launch a missile. And he was like, no, if I launch this missile, it could end the world. And it's like, what? Yeah, that really happened. Or the Cuba Missile Crisis, or just various other things happened that people, not countries, but just individuals were like, no, I'm not doing that. That's, I think, why we're still here, because I think people are good in general. That's why I don't go off on people online, because one, it might not be a real person. Two, it's written, so I have no idea how they actually meant it. Three, they could be having a bad day and just want to say F the world and see the whole thing burn, and tomorrow they'd feel 100% different. So I just take a step back and just try to be that person I want to be seen as when I'm failing to be that person I want to be seen as. You know what I mean? Like when I ain't quite at the level I want to be, I at least try to fake it until I make it into that person I want to be.
Oh, that's a great, let's say, like point of view on that. Yeah. Because you're right, 100%, and on all those levels, right? Like, everybody says stuff they regret, and you don't have any idea. I've just had this happen to me so many times, and at this point, it's kind of frustrating. It is one of the more frustrating things when you have a large enough audience. You just can't give a shit anymore. Like, I'm sorry, but you just can't. Like, I have like Woods. I know, like, I would care about a relationship with Woods or whatever, but a random person comes up and says something in the chat, and you say something offhand and they take it the wrong way. Every once in a while you'll be like, oh shit, like something will come to mind, or maybe somebody will say like, I think you pissed that guy off or something, or she was saying something the other way, and it's like, oh, okay, well, you know what I mean? Like, but you can't track everybody down. Like you say, like, I only got so much time in a day, and if you came up to a chat and got offended by something that was said inadvertently, like that gets to be frustrating, but there's nothing you can do about it. So I don't want to say that, so you've got a different relationship with the professor than all that, but that kind of stuff can happen. And until somebody's been around, I mean, he's still calling it gun culture 2.0. And I don't know why he says it and all that, but I just did the math the other day. I'm pretty sure we're in gun culture 8, but you know what I mean? Like I think we are, but I'm looking at it from gun culture. He's looking at it from societal, whatever Wood said, like he's a society sociological professor or whatever, a professor of psychology. So he's looking at it from there, and he's valid as hell. He can say whatever the hell he wants. I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying we have a difference on that. But if he takes something incorrectly, like how would you know unless you know? So anyway, because you can't, as a person who's just saying stuff on the web over so much time to so many people, I can't be aware of or I can't stop to think about every single way that somebody might interpret it.
And again, when you welcome people from the outside, like I do, and if you follow my page, I'm not telling anybody who to vote for. I'm definitely not a huge Donald Trump fan. It just sucks that these are the choices that we're given that are realistic about who can become president. My thing is pushing the Second Amendment and getting people to actually participate on the local level in Second Amendment organizations and to vote for their rights on a local level. Start there and worry about the rest of it. That's it. So I'm not attacking you regardless whether you're a liberal, whether you're conservative, whether you're politically agnostic. I'm just telling you, this is something they're working on. This is what they've done in the past. This is what they're doing now. Nothing about that's going to change except you. And if every now and again I make fun of a politician on either side, and I've done it to both, you should have seen the people whose panties got in a knot when I attacked Lauren Boebert. when she got in and was able to carry her Glock 26. And I was like, well, that's good for her, but what has she done to pass gun control while she's been there, or fight against gun control while she's been there? Oh, she did a lot in college. What did she do? And at that point, she had not done anything. And I went, think about this. I'm Tony Simon. I'm a Second Amendment advocate. She got her name out there with the cafe and telling, what's his name? Beto O'Rourke, that he's never taken her guns. Well, I'm a Second Amendment advocate. You think I get to Congress, the first call I ain't making is to like somebody like Adam Kraut? You know what I mean? Chris Knox, or the friends I already have in the Second Amendment advocacy community. You think the first week we ain't all going to be in DC sitting around talking about the bills I'm going to write up, even as a junior, whatever, and throwing them out there? If I ran on the Second Amendment platform, that's what I was going to do. So I said something about Lauren Burberg not doing that. And people wanted to go after me, and I shut them down, or I ignored them. And one of them was a friend of mine, Derek from KidSafe. And I was like, Derek, you're right. She might have done things in Colorado, but what has she done in DC? Until she does something in DC, I'm not impressed.
It's not taking it to the next level. It's just adding that whatever, like putting that button on her hat, but she's not walking the walk. She's just putting the button on her hat.
Yeah. So I'm like, and look, she's done stuff. And I also pointed out, what's his name? One-eyed Navy SEAL.
Crenshaw.
Texas. There you go. I called him out long ago before other people. And then when he said the thing he said about red flag, I called him out again. Some people didn't like that. I am not loyal to a party, and neither should you be, regardless of who you are, because if you're loyal to them, you get what's been happening to Black Americans for a long time. In my opinion, the party takes your vote for granted. And they do things like having rappers that sing the WAP song, introduce you on stage. They assume that they got your vote locked down and they have to do nothing for you or listen to you. If you treat every party like a selfish friggin' boyfriend or girlfriend and continually say, what have you done for me lately, and hold them accountable, then you have the power that you're supposed to have as a citizen, regardless of the party, because I don't believe one party will save the Second Amendment. I believe the citizen will, by making parties back the hell off the Second Amendment, like it was in the 50s or even prior, because there is no reason. They've used their failure to keep us safe to take our firearms away. They use.
Okay, hold on. Let me just throw something out there just for instance. Why not, right? You said they failed to keep us safe. They they took over the responsibility by taking away the individual's responsibility and then failed. So I don't want to have like there was no assumption.
Say that again,
so there was no assumption that the government was going to keep us safe. They took away our ability to provide our own security, and then failed to provide any security. And then now we have violence, right? So I mean, it's not that you said it was wrong. I just wanted to like throw that out as like I don't know if it's a clarification or just like a finer point that and then because they took all that stuff away so long ago, that it's been a status quo for at least a couple of generations until luckily now it's the other way around. Now the kids growing up know that mom and dad carry a gun. Why? Because they also have a fire extinguisher. Why? Because they also have car insurance. Why? Because they don't want to lose everything they got. So, it's not anything else. And the kids growing up nowadays with that, how can they be duped into saying your parents are bad people for carrying guns? Maybe
because they're being told that. They're being told that in school, and we have to push back on it. And you're 100% right, and I like the way you said it. They took that ability away from us, but through their failures of prohibition that allowed gangs to be created, that allowed drive-bys and gang warfare in major cities and smaller towns, that was government's failure. They banned something and created a black market. Black market was filled. People didn't want to stop drinking. Just like the war on drugs helped create gangs. So they created that, and their answer to it was to establish the NFA. Oh, that'll stop it. Okay, I do apologize because, again, I've been reading books, websites, blogs for going over 40 years now. So sometimes I can't quote sources, but I read a guy who actually did a study on how many drive-by shootings or shootings were done with Tommy guns and machine guns during the entirety of Prohibition. I think it was less than 4.
Yeah, it was almost just the Valentine's Day massacre. It was almost just that one thing.
It was pretty much the Valentine's Day massacre was the tipping point or the big thing, but there were very few of these. And I'm talking over a decade. There might have been 4 or 12. Either way, over a 10-year period, that's a little more than one a year. But it made newspaper headlines when somebody opened fire, and it made the movies. So the movies of that time frame were full of people using Tommy guns on everything, and there wasn't a dozen uses of a Tommy gun or machine gun in that entire time period. There was one a-hole.
It was Dillinger, and that was a massive thing. Or not Dillinger, Dillinger, but also Bonnie and Clyde. Yep. Like those two were like massive, and they were complete outliers, but they were massively popular.
And they weren't purchased. Bonnie and Clyde stole their stuff from National Guard Armory.
Yeah, they fucking ripped it off.
But, yeah. So they used those shootings, and again, legislation they created that failed to take our rights away and ability away, because $200 back then was $2,000 today, or $2,500 today, and that was how much the tax stamp was. Meanwhile, the Tommy gun itself was $200. So unless you had $4,500 as a regular citizen during the Great Depression to spend on a Tommy gun, you didn't. Government failed. Again, they pushed the same.
They did have money to buy all their armed guards, Tommy guns in the Depression.
Mm-hmm.
People writing the law.
People writing the laws in the U.S. government. And then when you skip ahead, and I've done this whole thing and actually said it in the speech, you skip ahead to the Black Power movement, the radicalism of the 60s, the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., Robert Kennedy, and JFK. All of a sudden, they attack our rights again.
You put a lot of stuff together then, because if you go to California, which everybody likes to complain about, rightly so, because of Reagan and the Mumford or whatever, that wasn't like, all of a sudden a bunch of people in LA just started being violent. That was the police were fucking around with people to the point where people were starting to say, fuck this. And then a bunch of people said, you know how we can end this? We're going to carry around carbines. And that's when the government decided, that's a bad thing.
Couple things happened also with the carbines thing. So the Black Panther movement came along and was like, because what was happening was anytime a black dude got arrested, he may or may not have made it to the police station. This was for real, that you would get arrested and never seen again, or you'd be seen again in the hospital. And, the police picked him up and he tried to escape. So this was real. So what happened was the Black Panther decided to show up. Whenever there was a call for the police, they had the police radio, and they would show up with firearms. And all of a sudden, brothers was getting to the police station. And that was a problem. And then when they went and protested, again, with firearms, to the State House, Reagan was one of the first ones in line to ban the guns and pass the Mumford Act, who was a Republican, by the way. And people go, see, Reagan and the Republicans. Understand something.
Didn't he flip flop? Was he a Democrat then?
No, he wasn't a Democrat. Okay. His district was changing to Democrats, and he was trying to hold on, so he tried to appease. He lasted 2 election cycles and then disappeared from life, political life. And that seat has been Democrat since then. That seat has been Democrat since the 60s. So when people point out that it was a Republican that passed it, the Mumford Act, I'm like, but not one Democrat in the seat in 50 years to change it back. And that's when they get real damn quiet. That's when they get real quiet. But again, it was the assassinations during the 60s that also got the 1968 Gun Control Act passed. where they had to come up with FFLs. Well, they didn't come up with FFLs out of the goodness of their heart. They came up with FFLs so it could tell black people and minorities that they couldn't have guns. See, before you could order them through the mail and have it delivered to your house. With an FFL, you had to go to a firearms licensed dealer.
Hold on, just to be technically accurate, FFL started in 1938. There's the NFA, right, in 1934, and then a couple of years later they do the so the FLA, or something like that, which creates the FFLs. But FFLs didn't hardly mean nothing; they were just a way to license. But then in 68, what they did is said, now you have to use the FFLs. You can no longer, like you just said, you can't get it to your house anymore. Now you have to go through an FFL. But the FFLs technically had already existed. They were just
already existed.
They were just sort of an entity. Yeah. But I thought 1968 created FFLs also for many years until I figured out that there was technically that difference. But yeah, that's a normal.
I appreciate that, dude. Good, because now I can update my speech, or at least not misspeak. So yeah, so they came up with that just so they could stop minorities from owning guns. And New Jersey passed a law after the Plainfield riot that we can't. I think that was one of the first ones where they actually named a model of firearm and named manufacturers that you couldn't own in New Jersey. So we couldn't own M1 carbines after that, because M1 carbines were real damn cheap in the 60s because they made millions of them, and they were semi-automatic, the M1 carbines, the original ones. M1s and M1As, right? M1A1s. Yep. I think all of those were semi-autos. So they were selling them cheaply. Like, think High Point.
A lot of them never got shipped. Yeah, they were coming straight out of the boxes from the factory.
Yeah. So they just dumped those, and you were able to pick one up. And now all of a sudden you had by then, because we had 15-round magazines to start with, they were dependable, but understand, they still had brand new, what were they, 30-rounders too, that you could pick up, and they were new. They weren't 50, 60, 70-year-old garbage that sometimes you have to deal with today, or Korean import mags. So you had an effective firearm to protect yourself from police, from racists that were coming and knocking in doors, and all kinds of things. So they wanted to make that more difficult for the minorities, because not only black people, Native Americans were standing up back then. There was a big movement in Hawaii for people to get their nationality back and take back some of their land, and actually talking about their heritage in Hawaii. There were Puerto Ricans. There was a Puerto Rican movement going on. So, and there was also the Weathermen. I don't know much about them, but there were a lot of radicalized groups that were arming themselves up against the police that were really, really racist in the establishment back then, and they were pushing back. So again, because we failed to live up to our, as a nation, all men are created equal thing, they took our rights away and told you it was a good idea because it was keeping you safe. And eventually, at the same time, we got some of those rights back for real. Understand, the Black Civil Rights Movement, according to the history books, ended in 68, 69, with the Housing Act. That's not long ago. I am the first generation of Black Americans to be born with the same rights as white Americans. That's insane. I should be 150 years old if America really meant what it said. After the end of the Civil War, everyone should have had the same rights, regardless of where you're from. All men were created equal. They didn't. But they used that failure to take our rights away. All of that stuff wouldn't have had to happen. Most of it wouldn't have had to happen if we were just all men were created equal. None of those civil rights movements would have had to take place. And that's what I look at. And that's why I say you don't owe loyalty to a party. You make them earn your vote by staying politically active, by keeping your foot, either however you want to put it, in their throat or in their ass. But one of your feet should be constantly busy with your local politician.
You know, that's something I think I was going to try to say before and I missed it. But when, let's say somebody wants to be a political party, one or the other, or hopefully one of the 3 or 4 that are out there, I'm all for it. Like, I don't care one way or the other. I don't personally go that way, but you can go that way if you want. But then, so now you get back to, you do something on the socials, and somebody's watching, and then they got a disagreement or difference of opinion on the post or the content or whatever, you can see that as, oh, that's given me a black eye, but it's also, I think you could also see that or interpret that or whatever, accept that as, oh, here's something. Now, I don't like the way he might have said it, but he's saying they're two-faced over here, or they're not living up to their thing, like that this is something that is important to them. They're making fun of it or they're angry about it. And that's, I would rather not have to deal with. But now I've been enlightened. Maybe that's what I'm looking for. Like, I'm enlightened to this aspect, and I should be able to take that back to my side and give them some feedback. Because let's say that she's doing something, literally she thinks that's cool. Like, she doesn't understand that that's offensive or, whatever. And she gets some feedback and she goes, oh, snap, I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't think she's that person, but you know what I mean? Like,
nope.
Potentially,
but yep.
if you don't allow that mechanism to happen, or at least to understand that there's that way of understanding, what happens on social, I think that's, I guess, I don't know how to word it if I'm saying it good, but
no, you're right.
You're right. There's a way to like understand, like, I don't like the way you said it, but now I know that you don't like this. So now I should be able to take that back to my side and go, hey, if we lay off this, then at least we're not offending these people. But like the same thing with, like, I'm not going to go into a gun shop and say, take down your flag because it offends some people. But at least I can understand, like, okay, I could understand that. Like, I've gone into gun shops and I'm like, I don't like their like design, or I don't like the way that they, like, I don't personally like flags all over the place either. I think it's stupid. I think it's usually it graces the flag. One flag subtly is fine. But if you like have to remind me you're United States, then I'm skeptical. Like, I don't need to be reminded that I'm in the United States. Why do you have to try to convince me you're in the United States or something? Like, we all know we're here. So, you know what I mean? Like, I can get it, but at the same time, but at the same time, if I walked into a shop and I seen like they had a whole big Nazi thing, and I felt like it, I probably wouldn't care, but because I'd leave the shop myself. But if it was the kind of thing where I could tell, like, they're just not paying attention they're not reading the room, I might be like, hey, you know what? I'd put all this shit into a box and then maybe like let the two people that give a shit about this know that you got the box, but you're offending like shit tons of people as you come in here, or at least you're being misunderstood by a shit ton of people that walk in here who don't see this as memorabilia of our fallen enemies, right? Which is the only way you want that shit around, right? Like, these are the people that tried to kill grandpa or grandma or whatever.
Could I tell you something that you just said that triggered a memory of mine? Understand, I've been going into gun shops since the 70s, right? I mean, since early 80s, late 70s. There used to be Confederate flags hanging up in some of the gun shops down in Virginia. Not for sale. Their heritage. They had that flag hanging right beside the American flag. That's what I grew up with. So when I talk to people about being able to see how other people see things. So again, as an adult, if I walk into a damn gun shop today and they have a Confederate flag hanging up, I'm going to have a conversation with them about firearms. If they just have the Confederate flag hanging up because they believe that's their heritage, if I even bring it up, it is what it is. I'm not going to assume immediately that they're a bunch of racists that don't want me in the shop, especially if they're having this conversation with me. I mean, they just may be freaking racists that take my money. But guess what? I don't know what's in the mind of the red guy in the gun shop that doesn't have the Confederate flag hanging up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
it's like, talk to the dude. And if you're upset about the Confederate flag, bring it up. It's hanging on the wall. He has it there for a reason. Talk to him. Don't make assumptions. Or make assumptions if it seems, understand. A Confederate flag may be a damn good indicator that he might not want your black ass in the shop. But don't stop right there. It's an indication. Talk to them. Find out what kind of person they are. It's not that hard. You do have other things that you can take in the totality of the situation and talk to a human being like a human being. And if you find out that he doesn't like your kind, all right, bye, and leave. If not, and this is a dude that was born and raised in the South or can trace his family back to somebody in the Confederacy, and that's why he had the flag up, going, man, that's crazy because, man, the first thing I thought was racist when I saw that thing. I wonder how many people came in and didn't say anything to you and left.
Yeah.
But hey.
And if you don't tell the guy
funny.
that, maybe he never feels like, he never understands that or something. I mean, I think
maybe
that
he doesn't even think about it.
I
I'm
was
just
gonna
saying
say,
where I
the only
grew
other
up.
thing I could think of why you'd want something like that is reenactment. Like, again, you might see somebody who does like reenactments with Nazi shit or with Confederate shit, or I don't know, whoever else enemies we've had.
It's a big thing. It's a big thing in a lot of places.
Both stuff. Like, you're not going to see usually just the enemy stuff. But again, I don't know how a store might be. Like, maybe that's their thing, is being the enemy all the time.
Depends on where it is. Understand, everybody wants to play the bad guy in the reenactments. Again, I come from Southwestern Virginia. A lot of people wanted to play Confederates in the reenactment. Now, I've had friends from all over, again, because I'm a gun dude. So when we're talking about the gun thing, one of the funniest things I ever heard was the guy says, yeah, reenactments, everybody wants to play the Confederates. And he said, the fatter they are, the sooner they die when we're doing these. He said, so they're out there with the full uniform on, first volley. If it's really hot outside, fat dudes go down immediately. And they're out. And they can go back and start drinking and hang out.
Exactly, because it's all on them, right? So that just means they can take a knee and be done. They can have played their game, and now they can go back to playing. Yeah.
We hung out with the fellas. We did the first volley. I went down, or maybe did a couple volleys. I went down, go clean my gun, stay in the shade, drink beer. That's it.
Let the rest of the guys play, and we'll watch them. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just funny because, again, I've had conversations with people that some people will go, I ain't talking to them. They like to pretend to be Confederates on the weekend. What? Have a conversation. Maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you'll learn they just like the time period, like the gun, like to wear the gear, have a good time hanging out with friends, like the history of that point, like the fact that they live in a place where these things actually took place, because that's where I'm from. Being from Southwestern Virginia, we have the Revolutionary War and the Civil War happened in our backyard. Like literally, where I come from, Lee marched through. So it's like
I've
there were
visited,
battles fought.
I think I'm not going to say every battlefield, but I've been to most of the states looking at the battlefields as a little kid in an RV back in the old days. So I understand like the size of the country back east, even though it's smaller than over here. It's massive. I mean, it's smaller than over here, but we're massive over here too. So it's still a massive amount of coverage. And I don't think I've been to like every battlefield and like wherever the hell they've been north and then all the way to Florida or anything. But like I say, every year we would go to the battlefields and see different ones. But and I would always the same thing. Like just standing on some of them is just crazy because they literally left them. Like some of them they've left right as graveyards or whatever, or as memorials. So some of them you're just near because the thing took over a whole area, or it's a whole town that was in a fight. So you're just at one little marker, but sometimes you're in the field where like it actually happened and nothing has happened since then. And that's a level of significance. I don't know what to say, like a reverence or something. And maybe it had something to do with living in the Cold War and living through the end of, two victories of world wars where we, as far as our concern, I'm sure other people have different opinions, but from our point of view, we helped the world stop world wars twice, and then we fucking sat down. Like we didn't decide to take parts of the pie. I think we helped. I feel like we helped countries that were flailing or that needed a little help or that asked for help. I mean, I don't know every little story, but you know what I mean? It's not like we just decided to start grabbing territories or anything. So anyway, I think that, we lived through that. We remember, I think we both remember 1976 or 1776, 1976 bicentennial parades. Like, there was a massive amount of patriotism around when we were little. So for me, like visiting those battlefields was significant. Huge. Because it was, like you say, it's there, but it was also like it could have ripped the country into two pieces, but instead it was like the scar that gets stronger. Like it allows us to get past some bullshit and actually, like you say, get towards what we originally wanted. What I think a lot of people would say their founders wanted, but in 18 whatever couldn't. Or 17 whatever couldn't. take the whole bite. But, it allowed us to get a little closer to that without falling apart, even if we didn't reach it, we got closer to it without breaking the whole fucking thing. And I still think
I
Civil
really
War,
hope so.
it allowed us
Go
to
ahead.
show how strong our system is. Like, it was a massive, massive stressor to the system, and the system withstood it.
Yep.
Even though nobody really won, everybody lost, the system still lived through it and stayed through 2 world wars and all the rest.
Well, I'd like to say, somebody won. We won. Black people won.
Oh, no, I just mean that, like, so many people lost, and it's all our own country.
Oh, believe me.
A fucking horrible waste of life.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I mean. But yeah, so of course, yeah,
Yeah, I know.
better in the long run. Yeah.
But dude, when we talk about firearms, we talk about history, and we talk about what happened or could have been. I think a lot of it's lost on people when I listen to these talking about. And it's funny because we all joked about the Boogaloo. That was a joke. It was never real. It was always just Civil War 2.0, the electric Boogaloo. It was a joke. Some people started taking it seriously, mainly because, again, they just showed up. They just showed up and didn't get it was a joke.
Yeah.
The Civil War was
Exactly.
so serious. Yeah, the Civil War was so serious, and so many men that died of reproduction ages that it was like 2 to 10, or excuse me, 1 to 10, 1 to 20 single men to women. Like, it affected population growth for generations. It affected, Virginia was still effed up 50, 60 years later because an entire generation of men were killed. An entire generation. And this is when you did manual labor on the farm. So the farm died because he died. She wasn't jumping up and jumping on the tractor and taking care of this. Whoever was left had to do the work by hand.
Right.
And we're not just talking 18-year-olds killed. We're talking 16, 15, 14-year-olds killed. So it was real. And I don't think people understand how much death and destruction come with the Civil War, because we in America, for the most part, don't pay attention to when they happen in other countries on that level. We just think there was fighting and it ended, a decade later. But if you look at Sudan, Somalia, those countries, or even Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia, and see how it was torn up. Dude, it is it is not what you think it is. It's not some glorious one side whoop the other side's ass. It's long, it's drawn out, and it's ugly. So I feel that firearms ownership is one of those ways that if it does all fall apart, at least you'll have a means to resist, because it's not just armies walking in, it's rogue groups of a-holes that may call themselves a militia, but they're just taking advantage of a situation. That happens too. If you bother to study actual groups and actually what happens when lawlessness or government can't stop things, because some areas aren't even run by the federal government at that time. It might be local governments. It may be, what do you call those people? Warlords. It could be anything. So having the ability to own firearms when things go sideways, and they go sideways quickly, as Venezuela, nobody might have time to change the legislation or wait around for your pistol purchase permit or your firearms ID card. So that's another reason I don't go this far into it at diversity shoots, because some people aren't ready for this conversation. In this room, we are, because we're already firearms owners. Many of us are history buffs. But when I'm talking to new people, I'm like, you could have a stalker tomorrow. As a female, you have no idea. Some weirdo might just like the way you stir your coffee at the gas station and decide to follow you home. What do you have to protect yourself? Why don't you have this ability? Why are there so many obstacles between you and firearms ownership? Unless that person does something, the police aren't doing anything. And he can pretty much do some really frightening, dastardly stuff, and the police won't come out. And now here you are, in New Jersey, filling out paperwork, looking for 2 references to co-sign that says you can own a firearm because you're not a danger. Then you have to wait for the police station to wait the 30 days that they usually take, depending on the township, or in this case of Jersey City, up to a year to approve your pistol purchase permit. So you can at least buy a gun then? That's ridiculous. That's
I wish that,
ridiculous. And that's what, go ahead, bro.
just to throw a different angle on the thing that I wish was more often used. So what you just described there creates an environment where the bad guy knows that it's extraordinarily low odds that that victim has some way to defend themselves other than, fists and crying. So there's no deterrent value. What's the deterrent? Like you have a victim rich or whatever the word would be, like environment for the criminal. Even if you so one of the things that I've petitioned for a long time is I don't like the fear factor of buying a firearm. Buy a firearm because you can, right? You, like having a shit ton of fire extinguishers doesn't mean there won't be fires. It just means that the fires won't be as bad, right? Like having a fire extinguisher doesn't mean we don't need fire departments. It just means that the fires departments will show up and there'll be a smaller issue to deal with. It won't be an out of control 5-alarm fire. And then we don't have to wait until it's a 5-alarm fire to call the fire department. So having the firearm as a deterrent doesn't mean that the person even has to be afraid. It just means that criminals need to be afraid that they don't know who's going to defend themselves with lethal force. So if you're a 16-year-old kid and you're like, what am I going to do with my life? Well, I could go beat up an old lady and take her purse and I'll probably get some pills or some money, maybe some car keys, or I can go to her house. I could scare the shit out of her if I'm just an evil person or something worse, right? But why not? What's going to stop me from beating up an old lady? If I wait till the right, if I'm a predator and I wait to get her, I can get her. Or little kid, or guy coming home from work with a broken leg, or guy with his kids, or anything else. If I'm a predator and I want to get prey, what's to stop the prey? Well, spikes, right? Thorns, some kind of pointy tail, some kind of like eyes that see all around the back of your head. And what creates that? Well, having the ability to defend yourself lethally. So having a thorn, or having a thorn and knowing how to use the thorn, you're going to have that awareness. So there's critters that have thorns but never get attacked. I can't think of one, but maybe a porcupine or something. They probably don't have to have a lot of defensive use. But then you probably get something like, I don't know, some other critter that just has sharp teeth and claws, but, it's going to be wily. It's going to be paying attention to its surroundings. And if a bobcat tries to get it, it's going to fight off that bobcat a little bit, but it's going to use its sense to know that a bobcat's coming. So hopefully run away from the bobcat before it gets to it, or the predator before it gets to it. So that's the thing that I don't see used very often. We always say, let us defend ourselves, or here's a victim story. And I understand the concept of let's tit for tat, or bit for bat, or whatever the words are. If they're going to throw victims at us, let's throw victims back at them. Like there's victims on both sides, and you don't own victimhood. We are allowed to arm ourselves as victims as much as you're allowed to want to disarm everyone as victims. So that should nullify that. But we don't take the extra step to say, we're not insisting that you carry a gun. But what we are trying to explain is that when you can have a gun, bad guys go away. And we have all the facts on our side to talk about that, but it's just left there. Nobody brings it up as as a factor. But the deterrent factor that when there's a lethal consequence for crime goes down. And they can't they don't have to defend against that. So they never bring it up. And since we never bring it up, it's just like money's been left on the table. So I like to throw that out there. Everything you said is correct. But then additionally, for that person who's like, I don't want to defend myself. Well, guess what? Just by letting your neighbor defend herself, you've made your life safer. And you've made the people down the streets light safer. She doesn't even have to carry a gun, but if she wants to, she can. Therefore, there's a deterrent factor for that bad guy to go into another line of work. Maybe he's going to call people and scam people out of money that way. Or maybe he's going to rob cars or something instead of knocking people down and stealing their purses. And you know what I mean? Like we're not saying that we're making good people bad or bad people good. And that we're not saying that just because we are allowing firearms to be available, that everyone needs to carry a firearm. But when that's an option, there's a hell of a lot less crime.
I like what you're saying, and I'm going to try to incorporate it into Thursday's event because, again, they play on emotions. But when you go, New Jersey has this culture of not being armed. So you're thought of as an unarmed victim for the most part. We're a state with 9 million people. We only have 50,000 people that have carry permits now. That's a very small percentage. That didn't change anything. So most
And you
people
figure a
that are really,
bad guy's looking at
Mhm.
people in the mall, and he knows there's only 1 in 10 has a CCW. Is he going to be able to tell? Yeah, he's going to tell immediately, right? It's the person who's looking around. It's the person who's aware of their surroundings. It's a person who's holding their purse, right? It's the person that's wearing the correct shoes for getting away from a situation, right? And then
Mhm.
now it's more common, and it's not just 10% of the population, but like potentially 60% of the population is carrying. Now, how does that bad guy determine who is the prey? And let's say they
Yeah.
do figure out, oh, that person must be prey, and then they start to prey on them. What's the odds of 1,000 other people in that crowd saying, "Hey, buddy, how about you stop doing that right now"? That's
Yep.
not going to happen with our law.
Exactly. There's a reason. There's a reason every year, regardless of where the NRA goes and hosts their event, there's a complete drop in violent crime. I don't mean like a little. I mean it's almost all shut down. And it was funny. I really wish where I found it. Every year, this person used to do the police calls the week of NRA. He'd go in a couple days before or a week before because they'd have the little red pens on it where violent crimes happened. And they do the week of NRA and then the week after NRA. And it would just be like a clean map during the week of NRA. You might have like some, what do you call it? A domestic violence situation, but you don't have robberies. You don't have that kind of violent crime. And it's like, why? Well, because 70 to 80,000 people that may be armed just came to town. It's just that simple. Atlanta, immediately with the NRA, crime stopped. Now think about it. When they have like consumer shows and things like that, yeah, you got
Yeah.
a bunch of dweebs that are computer people. Yeah, you can rob them, stick them up, but all of a sudden the NRA shows up. You're like, yeah, I don't want to play that game. That might not work out real well for me.
That would
These
be an
might be.
awesome campaign for the NRA to have done, and somebody else can do it on their behalf, right? But that's a great,
Mhm.
what do you call it, like visual indicator of the concept, right?
Yeah, and I really wish I knew. I mean, you could probably Google it, figure out a way to word it to Google it. It came up. It was just hilarious when I saw it, and
Well, I have
I'm
a
like,
page on
yeah.
Minuteman or somewhere where I have, because at one point I was curious where the NRA conventions were, and there are only so many of them. Like they're on number 20 or
Hmm.
something. So I went back and just researched them all, and I put that list somewhere. That's what I tend to do is when I research something, I'll just put it on a website somewhere. So whenever I'm updating that page again, hopefully this will hit my memory or jog my memory, and I'll include that because that would be awesome to have a link of like any kind of a newspaper story or something at the time where it would have said like, wow, crime went down as the NRA show came into town. Wow, crime went down again as the NRA show returned. That would be, because I bet you there's something like that, because there are, if it's
Yeah.
an actual thing that's happening, there are always what do you call that, like the crime watch or whatever. There's a department of the newspaper
Yep.
that's typically watching the crimes, and they're going to notice a change in the trend. But I mean, I'm sure the same thing
Yeah.
happens like when there's a cop convention, right? And that would be the same
Hmm.
thing. Like they're going to go, "Hey, look, all the crime went away. What do you know?"
Yeah. Crime went down when 50,000 police officers showed up. Weird. Weird how that happened.
All
So
right,
and
so
actually, okay, go
we're
ahead, man.
we're
Forgive
at 3:27 or 3 hours and a
Yeah,
half. So I don't
let's
mind, but
pull.
I want to be respectful of your time because we'll just BS. We can BS next weekend. It'll be Red
Yep.
Dawn weekend, but something happened. Was it last weekend? I forget when he did his show, but he changed his thing up to Gun Club Radio. But he did his 100th episode of what used to be Costly Conversations, and we were on with that. And I noticed
Armed Atlas. Yeah.
he chopped it up. Yeah, he chopped it up and has been posting little pieces from that show. So I was just thinking, we always chat about our stuff or whatever, but you want to
Uh-huh.
give him a plug, his project?
Yeah. Yeah. So Aaron over at Armed Atlas, he had costly conversations. Now he's calling the Gun Club Radio. Give him a follow. Check him out. He has various people. He started off, which was awesome. He started off with minorities, women and blacks and Hispanics and things like that in the gun space, and he grew out from there to have just questions, manufacturers, suppliers, accessory makers of all ilks come on. And some just you're not gonna find them on other shows. So I think it's really worth following him. He asks very good questions, and I like the guy personally. We talk on the phone every now and again, and it's worth watching. It's Costly Conversations, or what do you call it? Gun Club Radio. So please give him a follow, check him out. And also, you still got my boy Rolando over at what is it? What's Rolando's show?
He changed the name of it now, and it's like it's the Pistolero still, I think, but I forget if it's, or is it? It's Rolo something maybe.
Oh, yeah, because
it'll be in my list here. I just don't watch him anymore because he's always just doing video game stuff. So I just
he does gaming stuff now. Okay, so never mind. My whole thing is there are people out there in this space that are brand new, and they're coming at this with fresh eyes. So you can check out Costly Conversations. I think that's worthwhile.
Yeah, and I think that he's Armed Atlas is doing the like more of a recipe to make a presentation where even when they were together doing Locked and Loaded, that was more of an impromptu live like reaction to the news, reaction to the right. So it's just more of a different type of it's not I consider it non-archival. I consider that more like impromptu live. His stuff is live, but he's doing it in a way that he's creating an archive. So I'm super curious when people do that, especially like you say when they've got a new perspective on it.
Yeah. He just posted something that says I can't unhear this, and there's a clip of him and I have no idea what this 1 minute 13-second clip is going to have on it, because you guys listen to me on here, so who knows what the hell I said. But yeah, it's called Gun Club Radio. Please give him a follow. I'd appreciate it. Give him a listen. Yeah, give him a follow. It'll pop up. He keeps stuff short. He's talked to me about chopping it up into almost shorts just to give you a tease on what's going on. He had Chris from 1911 Syndicate. He had him on pretty much right after SHOT Show. And I thought that was pretty good because if you don't know, you probably had never. Have you paid attention to 1911 Syndicate at all? Did you watch?
No.
All right. So it's really well done, edited, filmed. 1911 enthusiast, but he has higher end firearms on. It's Chris, and I forgot the name of the other guy. But Chris is probably 6'6", beard, big guy, big white dude. And I watched the show from the beginning. And I watched them grow. They're actually real estate guys that got into the gun space and started making gun YouTube content. Anyway, we met each other. Saw each other at a restaurant at SHOT Show. I thought he was someone else because he kind of looks like a tall Hoss, USMC, right? So I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me, and we're like 3 tables apart. And it's the gayest thing ever, right? Because there's these 2 big bearded dudes staring at each other across the restaurant.
Checking each other out, eyes up and down.
Yeah, and I'm like, what? Okay, who is this? Because I'm thinking Zeke. No, it's not Zeke Stout. You know what I mean? It's not this person. I'm like, why do I know this dude? And it wasn't clicking with me who he was. And you got Jeremy from Firearms Radio Network, who's a friend of mine. And I'm like, well, Jeremy's ass ain't going to be at SHOT Show. They banned him. I'm like, who is this? And it's clicking. And then he'd have somebody come to the table that's, a famous gun tuber or whatever. And then I'd have somebody see me, and they'd like, hey, Tony. And they're like, should I know that dude? So anyway, he was on the show, and I was like, oh, son of a gun, that's who it was. So he's on Aaron Live. And I freaking typed in, I was like, dude, we stared at each other for like 45 minutes. He was like, I was wondering who that was. He was like, you should have come over and said something. And I was like, that was just funny. It was like he was looking at me the same way, like, I think I know that guy. But, I'm another bald, big black dude with a beard. So it could have been me, it could have been Kevin Dixie. That's about it. Yeah, me, Kevin Dixie, Maj, or Coleon Noir.
Yep.
Because we all look the same, and nobody's ever seen us in the same place at the same time. I got to get that picture, dude. I have a picture of me, Maj, and Kevin Dixie at the Circle Bar one time, and I posted it up and go, "See, we're not the same person."
That's what the AI would definitely post with that picture, though.
Well, I told you I work in a prison, obviously. The very first time I was in the prison and they ran yard movement, which is exactly as it sounds. Everybody went to yard, when all the adults go to the playground. Well, I was stuck in a booth. So I got to watch an entire compound walk past the booth on the way to the yard. Yo, dude, how many black guys with bald heads and beards over 6'2" do you think walked past that window? I was like, I may owe every cop I thought was racist an apology. Let's just say there's a whole lot of us that fit the same description. If I had to describe them, I'd pretty much just have to look in the mirror. It was ridiculous. I'm like, between 6'1" and 6'3", between 240 and 350. Bald head, beard. Damn. Actually had that happen at the cigar festival last weekend. I walked in and there was 5 of us that pretty much fit the description.
So what
Like
what is the deal there? You said it was cigar companies or manufacturers in New Jersey?
Oh, it was awesome. No, it was cigar manufacturers from around the world. Only a couple of them, like 3 of them came out. They have something called, I think it's smokers or something like that are held around the country, in Texas, in Connecticut, and out in Harris, somewhere in Pennsylvania. They hold like 3 of these big things where the manufacturers do come in. It's like $100 and something to actually go to them, but they give away so much stuff. They have drawings. I mean, lots of really expensive stuff, but it's cigar aficionados, people. They debut new cigars there. It's really a fun thing for the cigar person, or even if you're just getting into it, it's like, wow, I didn't know it was, waters ran this deep. It's like taking somebody who, hey, I kind of like a Glock, I want to buy one, and taking them to SHOT Show. It's like, what the frick? What? And that's pretty much what this was. It was like taking me to the NRA show, not quite SHOT, but NRA show, and seeing that, like, all these different cigars, meeting different people from all over.
Seeing all the behind the scenes and how big the thing is all at the same time.
Yeah. And dude, I bought 1 box of cigars, you know what I mean? Like before, and it cost me $120, and I almost had a stroke. There were guys buying boxes of cigars at between $300, $500, and $1,000 a box, and they were buying like 16 of them. 12, 11 boxes of these things at $500 a piece. I'm like, yeah, could I have that one? Oh, the box? No, that one cigar.
This is like NRA show where that's just rich guys buying it for their like cigar room, or is this like small businesses buying it for their stores?
They were guys buying it for themselves, for their cigar rooms, for their and not just rich guys. I mean, my friend Nick, who took me there, purchased like, I don't know, $700 worth of sticks. I was just like, yeah, I'll buy 10. So they had a whole build your own box thing, and they were like, yeah, you can either build your own box of cigars by going through and just pulling the sticks and putting them in a box, and for every box you buy, you get a ticket for the raffle later on. And then you could also purchase a totally different color ticket for raffle items. Well, because I put together 10 cigars in a box, that counted, and my raffle ticket came through, and I actually won a whole, what is it? An ashtray, aluminum cigar stand, and a 2-finger cigar case in a box. And I'm probably going to give this away Thursday at the diversity shoot. And then I won something else with another ticket. So I won twice, which was really cool.
Very cool.
And I'm able to, Yeah, and I'm able to give this stuff away as part of 2A4E, so that works for me. I don't need an ashtray and a two-finger cigar case.
What does that mean? Just too deep?
Yeah, it's just two cigar cases. You know those flasks, those really cool flasks we saw back in the day, a hip flask that was
Sure.
made out of pewter or sterling silver. It looks like one of those, except it doesn't have, something you can pour out. So it just pulls in half and holds two cigars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it looks nice. The ashtray looks pretty cool. It's from I don't know, Flying Hog or something like that, Flying Pig. Again, I don't know all this stuff. I have Drew Estate cigars. I also got a thing from Acid, a 10-count cigar travel case, and they have a challenge coin in here, a wipe down rag, and a couple other things in here. So again, giveaway items, man, and raffle items. Excuse me. Means nothing to me. I don't need another travel case. I got one. I'll take it to SHOT Show with us, so we can smoke cigars at the rental and hang out with my friends. I'm not that deep into cigars, even though I think it's interesting. It's just I'm a Second Amendment dude. I'm a gun guy. This is where I like being. This is what I like talking about. As we see 4 hours later, we're still on. This is what I like doing, and this is a community I like, and I'm just trying to grow it and improve it and fight for the right to keep having it, because we don't just talk about guns. We talk about everything. We talk about life. And I think that's one of the cool things about having and hanging out with gun people from that are mature, that are from different lanes, that we can have these discussions and not get offended because we don't agree. Good, we don't agree. It allows me to think of things differently.
Instead, like, we can use this common thing to understand, right? Like, that's like you brought it up many times. We always talk about it, going that 50% to stand in another person's shoes. Part of that is being able to get that first contact with somebody who's different than you, and having this. I mean, I talk to tons of people who I would normally never talk to, not just physical location because they're in a different state, but just, into different things. But, whatever reason, something clicks and we talk about the same stuff. We show up at the same live shows, and there's a lot to this. And I don't think it's going anywhere. It's developing. It's had its ups and downs and stuff, but it's certainly not going anywhere. The internet definitely facilitates the ability to have friendships, like whatever you'd call like that one level down, from an actual friendship, but, awareness ships or something. And, so that you can kind of be in people's spheres or whatever. And like I say, I have a lot of
fellowship.
There you go.
It's called a fellowship.
And you can maintain these without having to be part of a group necessarily. You can, of course, that's a way to do it, but you just be by the socials. It allows us to really, and we haven't capitalized on that. That's like I say, I think I have a lot of optimism for the next gens who are growing up and living with this, because they're going to be able to capitalize on that level that we've taken for granted or let go or not really exploited or taken advantage of, or whatever the words are. And I think they'll be able to. And hopefully we'll give them some insight. We won't leave them hanging, and we'll give them some insight so they'll include, what we've got to offer in when they come up with this stuff. That being said, we're at 3 hours, 42 minutes. So let's wrap it up. You
wrap
said
it up,
doing
baby.
back to back
Yes, doing back-to-back diversity shoots.
Diversity shoots for everyone. I was going to say, are you burning out? Like, that's a lot to do, really.
No, I'm not burning out. I did get sick the last 4 days, 5 days. I missed 1 day at work, and got my ass back into work. Talked to my partner and was like, look, if you need something, cool. If not, I'm going to sit back here, do some paperwork, and just try to stay away from everybody so I don't, pass cooties on. And that's what I did. I kind of, I forgot the word. I kind of quarantined myself in a corner at work. I have my own office. I have actually an office within an office. So I just stayed in my office and fought my way through this. That's the only, downside of doing these things. That's also why I'm losing weight, trying to get in better shape, because we have the coming up, the Gold. I'll be speaking there at the Gun Owners of America conference. And I want to be in good shape for that. I'm going to be walking around. I'm 30 pounds down. I've lost another 6 since my last doctor's appointment. And again, this is all through just changing my diet.
Right on.
So yeah, I'm working to be in better health because I'm definitely going to become, before the summer's over, this is going to be a 501c3, and I think we're going to take off then. And I have to at least be in good enough shape to get money, all right, do fundraisers and plan 2025, because I feel if we have fundraisers and we're a 501c3, we'll have the ability to travel the country and at least do one tour. And if that works out, I'll work with my job to work a bunch of comp time, to actually have days off, to set it up so I can do like a week somewhere. You know what I mean? Do a week, hit 4 or 5 states in a week, do a diversity shoot on a Monday night in one area, do it Tuesday night in another area, do it Thursday, Wednesday in another state, and just bang, 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 working with Second Amendment organizations in that area. I think we can do it if we put enough planning out there, working with like Gun Owners of America, NRA, ILA, and whatever state organizations. I work with people. I'm not in competition with people. And I think if we get it together, we can all work together. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's what 2A4E is, bringing people together. So I don't have a membership. So no one sees me as competition. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
If these organizations saw me as competition, they wouldn't want to work with me. My whole thing is we need to pull our heads out of our butts and not depend on the 600-pound gorilla with the NRA, because we saw what that got us. The NRA is hurting right now and they can't donate as much money. I mean, they've donated less than Bloomberg to the campaign that's going on right now because of mistakes they themselves have made. But us as Second Amendment advocacy and Second Amendment advocacy organizations have depended on them to lead the way so damn much when we should have been doing this ourselves, not only as individuals, but as state organizations. I think that's a big thing. And a lot of people depended on big NRA, and I think that was a mistake. I think we should work together more and not be seen so much as competition, because many people belong to more than one organization. Quit acting like dumbasses. Because they're acting like they have a customer base, and if somebody's a member of one, they can't be a member of the other. And I think
that by the number of memberships somehow like gets us to our goal. Like it's like subscribing to a channel. Like that's just one of many ways to be participatory, but by no means does it solve the equation or end the debate or whatever. It just puts $30 here instead of there, or $30 here and here. Like it, depending on how you perceive it, it's still just moving $30 in the grand scheme of things. It's one little brick, but unless it's a part of a lot of bricks being moved, then it's just it needs more. There has to be more effort than that.
There has to be more effort, and we have to work together more. And hopefully, because again, GOA is having me speak. Second Amendment Foundation actually has contacted me because I'm friends with Adam Kraut, like actual friends of Adam Kraut, and he had me speak to them. And obviously, I have friends in NRA, ILA that I actually speak to, and that's who tried to set up the Midwest tour last year. So I have contacts with people, I have personal relationships with people. The hard part is getting organizations to loosen up the sphincter muscle and pop their head out of their ass and work together to get things done. And it wouldn't bother me if, let's say, I hit Florida or I hit the Midwest, and NRA, ILA supported me at 2 events, and GOA supported me at 2 events, and then SAF supported me at 2 events. So they don't have to be at the same event, but they can support the tour and advertise the tour. Tell people to go to diversityshoot.com to see when we're near you. And if it doesn't have to be a SAF event, it could be a NRA, ILA event, in coordination with whatever organizations in, let's say, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Because I'm sure Tulsa or Oklahoma has 2A organizations. I could work with them in NRA, ILA and put on 2-3 events in a 2-day period. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to hustle. I'm willing to go places and do things and work with people and talk about their local politics and introduce them to their Second Amendment organizations. Do exactly what I do here, except in other places. I'm willing to take that on and work with organizations across the nation. But we have to get together and stop looking at each other as some kind of damn competition, because divide and conquer works. And it has been working with us. And we've been doing it to ourselves. But let's not drag this on. Let me go ahead and give my information. Tony Simon at diversityshoot.com. Tony Simon at diversityshoot.com. You can see our schedule. You can see our mission. You can see our pictures. You can donate to me using PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, and whatever the last one is, Patreon. We're available. You can help us grow. Really appreciate it. You can follow me on on The Second is for Everyone on Facebook, Second for Everyone on X, Simon Says Train on Facebook, Simon Says Train on Instagram. Also, you can listen to me babble on the Firearms Radio Network's Gun and Gear Review podcast on the Gun and Gear Review podcast channel every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we talk about firearms that come out and do reviews on guns and gear. Think that's it. Oh, and you should listen to old shows if you've never listened to the Works Self-Defense Gun Stories. It is 100% worth listening to. I'm one of the 6 defensive firearms instructors that are on there. So please give them a listen. That is definitely worth something, especially if you're a self-defender. Did something weird just happen?
Yeah, I don't know. It popped, but you came right back in, so I'm thinking maybe it was StreamYard. I don't think it was on your side.
Yeah, because it came back without my picture on it. So anyway, that's where I am. That's how you can support me. I'd really appreciate it. And if you know any small businesses that want to donate things, let them know. I mean, accessory companies, anything that we can put together and do a giveaway, because I'm putting together some AR stuff. Matador Arms sent me some ambi switches, some ambi safeties. And I'm putting that together with, I have a Daniel Defense stripped upper. So I'm trying to put together another industry build that we can actually auction off.
Right on. So thanks for taking the time to join us each week. And we'll do the Red Dawn show next week. And I was going to say we would send you over to a Great Start Shooting School, who usually does their mental health awareness and suicide prevention show each Saturday afternoon. She hasn't posted it yet, though. So I'll just post a link to her show, her channel, so that you can maybe watch for the announcement to come out. Typically, if it isn't out already, it's maybe going to be like a live thing while she's driving or something, or at a hotel if she's traveling. Is either an instructor or an advocate. But I think Brooke does a great job each week to consistently focus on the conversation about mental health. We can talk about broken arms. We can talk about how I broke my tooth or lost my tooth in a fall. Nobody even thinks twice about it. But rarely do we talk about, the stress I'm under because of something that happened in the past, or something that reminds me of something that happened, or all the myriad of things that can affect us mentally or psychologically. And once we can normalize those conversations, we can actually move ahead, because we help each other. If we have broken arms or legs, right? If we twist a finger or something, we are able to have empathy for each other. So once we bring these things, we normalize these conversations, we can end the big issue, which is, the decisions that are made, unfortunately, by people who are in distress and often feel alone or something. So, if we can work towards that, I think that's one of the best things that could be done. And there's nothing else being done on a weekly basis to concentrate on this or focus on this. So even if you don't watch the show, sharing the show, liking it, engaging with either the Facebook or the YouTube helps it. As you know, the mechanisms on the internet are influenced by our actions. So we like to link to that one. That's one of the reasons I do the show on a Saturday afternoon with Tony, so that we can link to Brooke's show. Like I say, this week I'm not able to, but hopefully we made it clear. that it's worth your time. And again, thanks, Tony, for joining us, and everybody who joined us in the side chat. Woods was with us for a long time. I don't know if he's still out there. And earlier, we had a bunch of interaction from others, Plato, and I think Ozzy was out there earlier. Chris from 740, who does a show on Thursdays. And if I'm missing anybody, I apologize. And all the people that were on X and didn't participate, you are allowed to participate. The internet goes both ways. It's so much better than the radio or the television or a movie or something. You can interact while we're live. So please feel encouraged to do so. All right. Thanks again, Tony. We'll see you next week.
Yep.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to play a commercial. We're late anyway, or we're 4 hours anyway. Might as well throw a quick commercial up here for a couple of shows that are worth your time. Oh, I went right past them.
This is Earl Benson reporting from downtown Topeka, where Gizzard Gary is rampaging through the city. Authorities have asked the public to stay indoors. They believe he will tire soon and need a nap. Gizzard Gary can normally be seen on Foul Territory Friday nights at 7 p.m. Central. Wednesday, 8 p.m. for the channel members chat. Stay safe and give him the bird. Earl Benson signing off.